everybody, and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen. Everyone's getting a big stretch in for a good old-fashioned podcast. Thank you all for being here. I'm joined by Jeff Marchiafava, the stretchiest man in the show business. We got Kyle Hilliard.
Booth yoga, I call it.
And Sarah Pazorski.
Hello.
Welcome, everybody. We have a lot of fun things to cover on this episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. Thank you for watching us on YouTube. If you are, you can always subscribe on your favorite podcast app and vice versa. However you like to absorb us, we appreciate it. Is that what it really is absorbing us? Is that the way we should frame it? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Sure. We're going to talk about State of Play, what Sony announced in their big State of Play this week. Big? You tell us. Then we are a podcast in the year 2022, so we're going to be talking about Elden Ring, and there's just no way around it. Then Sarah threatened our lives if we didn't talk about Kirby and the Forgotten Land, so we're going to talk about that cool demo. Then Kyle threatened Jeffem's life if we didn't talk about Aperture Desk Job, the new game set within the Portal universe. Okay, so we had to get through all that fun stuff. And then Jenna Garcia is going to join us in the back half of the show for some wonderful questions from the community. I think we might have broken a record this week for the most questions submitted from the community over on Patreon, to the point that I think it broke Sarah's brain. The first time you tapped out.
Like scrolling and then more scrolling. And they were good questions too, like no overlap.
I know, it's a very creative batch.
I did shut down internally, and I was like, you know what? Let's just do it all.
All right, so we promise to do everything.
You want.
That's it. Hey, State of Play. It's everything you wanted, unless that was Final Fantasy 16, in which case it was nothing that you could possibly be hoping for. So the way that Sony teased this thing is they said, hey, a new State of Play is going to be 20 minutes. It's going to have a special emphasis on our Japanese publishers. So everyone's like, that's Square, baby. It's been a while since this Final Fantasy 16 update. Sarah was on the edge of her seat because it's the same director as Final Fantasy 14. So that alone is getting you interested, Sarah? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then instead, what do we get, Sarah?
We got dinosaurs falling out of a hole in the sky.
All right, so this is what they open with. They open with...
And by the way, it's a normal, not a crisis. Just a normal thing that happens in that universe.
Here's the thing. So this was their big opener, is they say, hey, this is a new game from Capcom. It opens with one of what we can only determine is the most iconic images in the history of gaming now. We're talking like Princess Peach's castle. We're talking Lighthouse in BioShock. We're talking a giant black hole in the sky with just a faucet of raptors being turned on, and they all fell out of this thing. I believe, wasn't there even a reference to like the word crisis in the background, Kyle? Was I really missing this?
I might have missed that.
Okay, maybe I was just plugging things into my mind. But everybody in the world thought dinosaurs, some lady with red hair, Capcom, this is a new Dino Crisis. And no, it's not. It's a game called Exoprimal from Capcom, which... Jeffem, how would you describe what this game actually is, other than certainly super duper not Dino Crisis 4?
I guess it's just a giant horde mode where you're fighting an endless stream of dinosaurs. It really seems like they should just put like a big spiky pit under the faucet of the dinosaurs, and the problems would be solved. But
that's interesting. Yeah, or just like dig a hole to the core of the earth so the raptors just keep falling and then they just get melted in lava, which is, I think, what took out the dinosaurs to begin with. Yeah, I mean,
everyone, Left 4 Dead is sort of the qualifier for this genre, right? But if you're going to point to one, it's World War Z specifically, because it's third person, and it also has, instead of a faucet of dinosaurs, it has a faucet of zombies.
I don't know, man. I was getting more like Anthem vibes from everything they were showing here. So I was actually bracing for impact, thinking like, if this is the direction of the new Dino Crisis, those fans are going to lose their minds. If it's like, hey, it's a live service game, it's Dino Crisis 4, instead of a Resident Evil style game, which everybody wants from Dino Crisis. So maybe it's a good thing that it's a new Capcom IP, Exoprimal. Try and keep your new Capcom IPs in your head now, because what is the other one? I want to say Prigmata. Does anybody remember the name of that Capcom
that
IP
sounds right.
that they teased a while ago? Pragmata, the one that was like on the moon and it looked like a Kojima game, but it's not a Kojima game. Look, it's all over the place. Okay, so we got that, everybody. We got Exoprimal. It's not Final Fantasy 16, but boy, it was iconic. Jeff, what else we got, man?
Forspoken.
Honestly, hey, if I may, I think it was one of the best looking things here. Kyle, I know you're maybe the most excited for it, but you're excited about like running around. Number one.
That reaction is funny, and you're not alone on the internet. I saw a couple people being like, that's the first time Forspoken looks good. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I feel like it doesn't look that different from everything I've seen up to this point. And I mean that as a compliment. Like, that game has looked good from the first moment I saw it, but now it's looking better and better every time. Yeah,
it's the open world action RPG from Square Enix, kind of from the team that was the Final Fantasy 15 team, but everybody's kind of melted away. But I think the core of that group is still very Final Fantasy 15 focused. And so really focusing on maneuverability and all that fun stuff, and just effects up the butt with every spell that they're casting. It just looks ridiculous. But I think this trailer worked for me because it was kind of a counterpoint to some of the messaging that they've had earlier, including like, Kyle and I watched a behind closed doors demo that was like half an hour or something. And the big thing that taught me was that I am very worried about the amount of talking in this game, and just them going to Quiptown, USA at every dull moment. And this trailer didn't really have too much of that. It was just awesome looking effects and cool fighting a dragon in an open world.
Admit that it was the triple jump that got you.
Triple jump is excellent. It really does look good.
It seems like the next gen signifier is just doing a lot of flashy stuff while you're fighting things now, because that and Tokyo Ghostwire, which they showed more of, is just kind of like, ooh, look at us, we're all so fancy in the next gen world.
Right.
Effects.
Yeah,
you gotta attack with style now, I think is the new bar.
Right. People aren't really that interested in 3D audio anymore. You have to come up with something new for next gen that should get you excited. And yeah, it's just more sparks than you could possibly imagine for every spell you could possibly throw. Let's see, Kyle, you went gaga over Gigabash. No, that was another new game they announced. But you went gaga over a new Returnal content.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's co-op, but they didn't go into too much detail. But I'm assuming the whole game can be played co-op now. And then it looks like there will be some new content as well. And they said a survival mode. Survival mode, I'm like not that interested in. But if there's new like story content connected to that survival mode, I'll probably play it. Yeah.
How much story would you really need though? I mean, it's going to be some cryptic teases, some flashes around there. I mean, is that going to be enough, or just some more?
There are some big, obviously we're not going to get into Returnal spoilers, but there are some big unanswered hanging threads from the end of that game for sure, like about Celine's family and her mother specifically. So there's definitely a ball they could pick up and run with for sure.
Yeah, like a survival tower with co-op doesn't seem like the most optimal place to talk about her mother, but I don't know.
Well, but you could say that about that whole game.
That's
the way
true.
The story is delivered is so strange. Like, you wouldn't think story, I don't know, it can be done well, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for new Returnal stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, for sure. I think probably the biggest surprise of this entire state of play for me was they showed a game. They described it as a new game from Square Enix, and they're closing out the whole thing with it. So everybody was thinking maybe they're just being weird and it's a confusing way of talking about Final Fantasy 16. But it's not. It was a game that looked strangely familiar, and then it ended up being confirmed. Look, I'm talking around it. It's a new Valkyrie Profile game, except it's called Valkyrie Elysium. Valkyrie Profile is an old Enix RPG on the PlayStation 1 that I never played, but I always wanted to. I know Joe Juba, who was on the podcast last week, is a colossal fan. I was even debating.
I think there was a sequel on PSP, like a proper sequel.
I want to say a remake on PSP, but then a sequel on PS2, but I could be wrong on both those things.
Silmeria is it on PS2.
Okay.
Yeah, I've tried Silmeria. I've played that one.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, this game, it's got like cell shading. It's going to be on PS4 and PS5. It's super action focused. It's a little odd. There's glimpses of it looking kind of like a Platinum game. There's glimpses of it looking like a From Software game. Like, Kyle, did anything stand out to you about Valkyrie Elysium other than the amazing spark effects flying all over the screen?
I mean, the original game was very much a 2D action game. So it's weird for it to make this jump to 3D. Or maybe it's the natural evolution. Maybe that was the only direction to go.
Yeah, it's cool that they're picking up this, franchise and running with it. Like, I remember at some point we're doing a live stream and we're talking about deepest dives that we want to do at MinnMax, and I was talking about there's a PS1 RPG that I kind of want to do, and it was Valkyrie Profile. We're not going to do it, to be clear. I mean, I'm not going to rule it out completely, but I've always wanted to play the game. And so I just had people in the chat try and guess what PlayStation 1 RPG I was talking about. And it was ridiculous. Everybody was guessing, and it went on for like 15 minutes, and nobody got to Valkyrie Profile. And that just like was a sign that like, okay, then maybe that's a sign that we shouldn't do Valkyrie Profile for the deepest dive because like 3 people would be super into it. But I'm excited for this. So they say, what is it? 2022? I think they said for Valkyrie Elysium. So that's interesting. Sarah. By the way, it's very weird because we just recorded our reaction stream to this. You can check it out on YouTube. So it's very weird to roll right from that into this, then just be like, Sarah, what did you just react to like 10 minutes ago on that stream for another thing that Square closed it out with?
Oh, I'm interested in the Diofield Chronicle game. That's another Square game.
That's not.
Is that not what we're talking? That's not what we're talking about.
That is what we're talking about, but that's not.
Do you want me to talk about the Gundams instead?
We don't got to talk about those Gundams.
JoJo? Did you want to talk about JoJo?
Look, there's a JoJo Bizarre Adventure fighting game. Genuinely, are you excited for that game?
Me?
Yeah. Sarah?
That's a no.
Okay.
What?
All right, that's fine. Yeah, the Gundam Evolution. It's like a first-person Overwatchy looking Gundam game designed exclusively for Sergio Vasquez. But yeah, this game that it certainly looked like a new Final Fantasy Tactics, and then lo and behold, they say, Nay, my dear, this is Diofield Chronicle.
That was
something
the
else
entire
entirely.
theme of this presentation. You're like, is that the game, the beloved game from my childhood? And they were like, no, new IP. And you're like, ugh, they got me again.
So they get all the risks of a new IP, but none of the benefits of making the name familiar
Classic
to anybody.
franchise.
It's just a really odd strategy. It's a bit of a triangle strategy, if I may. But Diofield Chronicle, it's like, it's tactical, but it seemed a little bit more action-based than Final Fantasy Tactics or something. It's not grid-based, but it seems like they're kind of playing with some of those themes again, but it doesn't look like it's set in Ivalice or anything. Diofield Chronicle. I know it's the oldest complaint in the book, but Square is blowing it with these names.
Also, I think it's the Diofield Chronicle.
You know what? I said they were blowing it. I take it back. Add the, now we're in business. Now it's $1 billion franchise.
I mean, they're specifically just trying to find things that can be Googled easily, like that. They're just like
They're
mashing
optimizing for
letters
SEO.
together.
They won't have to bid against other people to optimize it.
Well, that sounds great. But
I mean,
what
there's
about,
no way the DiofieldChronicles.com is not available, right?
what about do you think
available.
TriangleStrategy.com was taken, Kyle?
Oh, that's.
Let's see, TriangleStrategy.com. Yeah, the Triangle Strategy Group, unlocking the potential of your business together. And then they have a quote from The Art of War on their official page as well. I honestly just feel like people are enjoying Triangle Strategy now that it's out and all that stuff, but the name just sucks so hard. I really think it's turning off a lot of people who might be on board for something like an Octopath Traveler.
Maybe it's perfect. Explains exactly what that game is to a certain degree, right?
You know what? Maybe we'll see the sales data come back and we'll all have to admit defeat, and it was actually perfect. Let's see. This was really, it was wild how it was all Square, nearly all Square, but then no Final Fantasy except for Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which they showed a new trailer for. Kyle, how would you describe the arc of sentiment about Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin?
It went to this looks stupid.
Yeah.
With that tone, like this looks stupid, to this looks stupid.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
Those are the tone changes.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it. I think like at some point people just got super on board for like, okay, kind of like a campy, Nomura-fied From Software game. Somehow people are just completely on board for it at this point. And to be fair, the trailer looks good. Like the action looks interesting. I think it's going to be a weird, I want to say cult hit, but I'm sure it's going to sell well, like a From Software style game with the Final Fantasy name on it. But it's set up for a weird reception.
I don't know where the turn happened, where it was like people stopped taking it seriously. Like what was the switch? I guess it was just the protagonist talking about chaos so much.
Well, I think
Wasn't it the part where he like walks away with his phone and like he goes bullshit, and then he walks away with his phone and he starts playing music?
doesn't he play like
Yeah,
Limp
But
Bizkit?
why?
Yeah.
It's just that
Yeah,
weird question, that unanswerable question of like, why is that embraced and not?
Oh,
like,
now this is good. Now
I
this
think
is
it's-
the good
yeah.
kind of bad.
It's because it implies that they're very aware of it. Like no sincere video game trailer is going to end with the character listening to a Limp Bizkit song on his phone. So that was just like, that basically is the same as if Nomura came on the screen and it just zoomed in on his face and he just winked a bunch of times. And that's all you need to know to be like, okay, you guys are cool.
Yeah, but like everyone hates the Devil's Third. Like, what's the difference?
I think it's because it was sincere. I think they were trying to be cool with Devil's Third. And they're not with Stranger of Paradise?
I'm not even saying everyone's wrong or anything. It's just a weird thing to analyze. It's like, what? How did they figure that out? I don't know.
There's a new demo out now, and the game is coming out. This can't be right. March 18th?
It's 25th, right? No.
Yeah, next week. Next week, this game's coming out. March is just bananas. That's basically it for the state of play. Hopefully nobody was too crushed. Any other highlights that we missed here?
I'm genuinely excited for that Ninja Turtles collection because it has the Game Boy game that I played like when I only had like 3 Game Boy games. I had Tetris, Mario Land 2, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Back from the Sewers were like the 3 Game Boy games I started my video game journey with, and it's going to be on that collection. So hell yeah, I'll play that.
There you go.
So can you play online multiplayer for that Game Boy game, do you know?
That one was a single player game specifically. Okay. You could choose different turtles, but it was a single player game. But it will have online for like the arcade game and stuff like that.
Huh. Yeah. So 2022 for a bunch of old Ninja Turtles brawlers. So you can go right from playing Shredder's Revenge into playing some more Turtles games. So I guess it's
you can play that and then be like, oh, these do not play well. These have aged poorly.
Except for the soundtracks. Hey, Sarah, can we talk about something that's just designed to be loved instead of these games that we can pick apart from these trailers? Let's talk about this Kirby and the Forgotten Land, please.
A game designed to be loved and to love you back.
Yeah, it is just like the Switch cartridge is just like if you had a little bundle of pure love and you're able to insert that into your Switch. That is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. They released a demo that we both played through. You streamed, and I tuned into your stream because I'm like, I saw that you were at the end of the demo, and I'm like, I'm curious what she does when she finishes this demo because it's super short. And then you just went back and played it again because you're a maniac.
No, I didn't go back and play it again. I played it again co-op mode by myself, 2 Joy-Cons, one hand, and it was worth every pay. It was worth it.
Jesus Christ. What'd you think of Kirby and the Forgotten Land?
What a switch to flip when like I've only been playing Elden Ring for the past couple weeks or so, and then you pick up like I think everyone who's playing Elden Ring and like hustling and like busting their ass trying to get through it should put it down immediately and go pick up the Kirby demo and play that. Remember, and just play that for a little bit because the dissonance I felt like trying to play Kirby, like I was like, it's like it. I kept comparing it to Elden Ring, but it's not.
Somehow it's a different game. Although, to be fair, you have the choice of playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land in Spring Breeze mode or Wild mode. If you put it in Wild mode, hold on to your ass because this thing rips, Jeff. No, it's the easiest game known to man, based on the first 3 levels at least. Here's the thing, Sarah. I understand Kirby is a beloved icon. He's up there with a dinosaur faucet, but I think a lot of people have
Farrah Fawcett's sibling.
That's right. A lot of people are like ascribing this game so much potential and so much hope. And after playing that demo, I just want to cool people's jets a little bit. Maybe I'm nuts, but like, hey, this ain't no Super Mario Odyssey, everybody. This is a Kirby game with a slightly different perspective. Yeah. So please get your expectations somewhere realistic. I mean, outside of it being cute, were you impressed by the gameplay? Turn it into that car, turn it into the, I don't know, whatever it was, vending machine.
I mean, I guess I was impressed with how it actually, because normally Kirby just like gains abilities.
Right.
I'll be honest, it was kind of fun to be a car. Yeah. I enjoyed being a car. Like I enjoyed being a vending machine in a traffic cone much more than I thought I was going to.
Right.
It was a joy to play.
Yes. Are you excited to play through the entire thing when it comes out?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. All right. We heard it.
But did you know?
We heard it.
Wait. Did you know when you play co-op mode, guess what happens to Waddle Dee when you turn into a car?
Does he like stand on the top? I played co-op mode and I don't even remember. Is he just
like holds on to the back of the car?
Oh, that's cute.
It's adorable.
Like it's dragged.
So when this game was first revealed, everybody was focusing on like weird. It's like post-apocalyptic. What is this city?
Yeah, no, it's still weird. I still don't get it.
The weirdest part though is it's like I think it's supposed to be a take on Seattle. Because there's like a Space Needle and there's a coffee shop.
in the background.
Yeah, so it's like, this is just The Last of Us Part 2 in Kirby's world now. It's really bizarre for the theme they're going for. Also, is this common knowledge? I didn't know until this demo, they had a little factoid that popped up, that Kirby's homeworld, do you know what it's called, Kyle?
Popstar, Planet Popstar.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't know?
Planet Popstar.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. Planet Popstar is such a good name for a homeworld. It turns out Kirby is good, everybody. That game's coming out March 25th. So you can take a break from Stranger of Paradise and jump into Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Run, don't walk. Okay, let's do a little more mopping up of these small things before we get to Big Papa, as the game prefers to be called, I think. Kyle, there's a game that Valve released last week called Aperture Desk Job, which is supposed to be kind of a tech demo for the Steam Deck, but it is free and you can play it without a Steam Deck, and it's set in the Portal universe.
Controller though, I think. But,
yeah, it's really weird to have like a Valve game where it pops up at the beginning and they're very clearly trying to encourage you to use a controller. They have like the buttons on the screen and stuff like that. It's like, what a weird time for Valve. But it's set in the Portal universe and it's completely free for everybody. It's like 30 minutes long. Kyle, hot take. What'd you think of Aperture Desk Job?
I freaking loved it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's like, it's not even like this like gameplay showcase really at all. I'm a little bummed I couldn't play it on Steam Deck. Don't have a Steam Deck yet. But it was this weird moment where I was like, oh yeah, I'm excited for this. Let me check this out. And J.K. Simmons starts talking as Cave Johnson with new dialogue, and immediately I just was like, huge smile on my face. I'm like, oh my God. It feels so good to be in the Portal universe, even for just like 30 minutes. Like, and it's so funny. Yeah. And it's so weird. And to top it all off, the robot that you play as, Grady, or you play with, he's like your sort of boss, I guess you could say. He's played by this comedian, Nate Bargatze, who is like my favorite stand-up comedian.
Really?
Now. Like he has a couple. Yeah. He has a couple of Netflix specials. I like highly recommend them. And he's not an actor, but like, I don't know, I don't know. I just feel like he slotted in perfectly for his like voice for this character. And you're like testing toilets, and he tries to turn a toilet into a gun, and it's just really perfect. It's so funny, and it's kind of passive, but it's like perfect because it's just like, hey, here's a bunch of Portal 2 caliber dialogue. Just listen to it for 30 minutes, and not to spoil anything, but there is some like lore there is stuff in the end that's like exciting and funny and cool.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, where I went in just like, we'll see what this is like, and I'm always skeptical. I think it's really tough for a game that's as funny as the Portal games to release something new in that universe, because like I'm going to be judging that writing so hard, but absolutely on the writing caliber of Portal 2, just for this little 30-minute chunk. You know, Eric Wolpaw's in the credits, so I assume that he was heavily involved for the writing of this thing again. But like just that opening where, what's that actor's name?
Nate Bargatze is the comedian actor. Character's name is Grady. Okay,
and it's just that perfect Stephen Merchant-esque delivery from robots in the Portal universe, where it's just a lot of ums. It all sounds so natural and almost boring, but still compelling at the same time. I was completely on board.
He talks for like a while about, he like compliments your tattoo and just goes on this tirade about the tattoo.
Yeah, he's obsessed with tattoos.
It's so funny.
It really is great. And like right in the beginning, they're setting you up and teaching you how to do your job of inspecting toilets in Aperture. And then he has a line where he goes, the only important thing is to have fun on your own time before you come in. Right. It's really good.
No, I will totally play it again when I get my Steam Deck. Like there's no reason not to play it. It's like watching an episode of television, basically.
It's weird too. It made me think of like, obviously Valve has tried smaller content before with the Half-Life 2 episodes. And it made me think that like, this is the avenue that I want Valve to go in, or just big companies to go in, is short little interesting, preferably comedic experiences. That seems ideal for episodic structure. Instead of trying to make like episodic action games where the development of all these new systems and gameplay, that's what's going to take time. So many of these are just like static environments, but then just get some new writing in there. Like if Valve released one of these every 6 months, I'd be in heaven.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. I would like a proper Portal 2. The other sort of weird thing that happened with this is like I've never really felt like we needed Portal 3, right? Totally happy with Portal 2 and where it ended. And this actually made me kind of be like, you know what? Actually, I would like another proper, 8 to 12 hour Portal game. It doesn't have to have Chell, but like this really made me want to be in that world again. It was so nice to be in there, even for just 30 minutes.
Yeah, and if you don't have a Steam Deck, it is a little bit weird, which, by the way, we have a MinnMax Steam Deck supposedly on the way. They said Q1 2022, and I haven't gotten that email yet, and I'm starting to panic here. But the weird thing is, if you don't have a Steam Deck, there's a lot of situations where you can play through this, but there's stuff like, okay, this is the part where you sign your name. This is the part where you say your name into the microphone. And it's like, okay, obviously I'm supposed to be using the touchpad on the Steam Deck, but now I guess I'll just use my mouse, or they want me to use gyro controls, but that's just optional. So there's a couple little funky bits where if you didn't know what the Steam Deck was, it would kind of be confusing. But do you think...
Did we mention it's free? Like it's just a totally free download. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think... I haven't heard any other podcast talk about it yet. I hope it's not under the radar. I know it's such a small little thing, but like if you like Portal, you should really play Aperture Desk Job. Just take a little time for it. Also, it really made 100%. Me miss Stanley Parable. Remember they announced that they were making that new version of Stanley Parable several years ago, and it's still not out?
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with that.
Hey, man. Genius takes time.
Genius takes time.
Can't rush it.
Also, well, never mind. I don't want to get into spoilers for Aperture Desk Job, but there are parts of it where I'm like, this feels wacky even for the Portal universe. Like this is, like it kind of goes off the rails in a delightful way, but anyways, that's it. Hey, Jeffem, what have you been playing, man?
About 80 hours of Elden Ring.
Is it really 80 hours?
80?
Yeah, the timer says probably like 85 hours, which I think is a little overestimating since you can't pause. There have definitely been times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go stand in a corner in this cave while I tend to my real life child.
While I hug my child. Hold on.
Right. Imprint on them, all that fun stuff.
But it's
Jeffem, did you see that someone
they
did find a pause option if you go into your inventory?
I did, yeah. if you go through like 5 menus, you can actually pause it, which would be really helpful during a boss battle, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So here's the thing. We posted a standalone discussion from the MinnMax studio last week where we got into a lot of specifics. So if you're looking for some specifics in an Elden Ring discussion, you can check that out. I'm sure we'll talk more about this game in the future. Let's try and keep this spoiler free from any big reveals. Sarah, your eyebrows are hinting that that's impossible.
I don't think I'm only 20 hours in, so I don't even know most of the spoilers. But I just beat the second big boss, so I don't. Ooh. I'm like literally still in like Babies R Us land, I think.
I mean, I haven't beat the third boss yet. Anyways, but just I think like some of the magical discoveries along the way, I think like those types of specifics, I think it's easy enough to dodge that. We're still talking about where we're at for this game. So I am 45 hours in. I'm level 70. And I know it seems like a weird pivot that we haven't really addressed on the podcast in a real way, but I freaking love this game. I would like to formally apologize to all From Software fans for not listening to you earlier. I admit that I was wrong. This game is truly magical, and I'm so glad that it worked for me.
I gotta say, I enjoyed your guys' discussion about it. I listened to it, Hanson. And the funny thing about it is it was less... there was a lot of you like coming around on Elden Ring and finding things to love about, but it was also a lot of you like coming around on From Software mechanics and like really learning to understand how like a lot of basics will work for From Software games, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing is as much as I love this game, and I think if I could impart one message, it's please don't be scared of this game. I mean, I've had 13 years of everybody screaming about From Software games being impossible, don't even try, get good, all this stuff. I was expecting this game to be so much harder than it really is. Like, obviously people have talked about it, the idea of the open world, being able to run back and go anywhere you want if you're beating your head up against a wall. Like, I genuinely haven't really been frustrated yet in 45 hours. It's just been fun.
Yeah, I honestly think that I don't know that I would describe From Software games as difficult. Like they're obviously there's some level of difficulty, but I think the thing that people get hung up on is that dying in those games is just part of the core gameplay loop.
Right.
But I think most people when they play games, if they sit down with a From Software game, they die like 5 times in a row and they think, oh, this game's too hard, I'm not good at it, and then therefore they shut it off. But really, like if you're dying that many times, you're playing the game right. The question really is just, like, okay, I've died so many times I can't count, but I've gotten to the next bonfire, or I finally beat that boss, and like I figured out how it attacks. I've leveled up over the course of this. Like I got a huge haul of runes, and then I cashed them in for some better weapons or those kind of things. Like that's where the progression, and I think what makes it, why I wouldn't call it difficult, is it makes it very clear how you can progress, how you can get better, how you can continue on with the overall journey in a way. Like the first time we talked about it, I'd probably played 30 hours or whatever, and I beat my head against that Margit fight, and then I realized like I just shouldn't be doing this right now. And I just went and I traveled across like the entire continent, or what I thought was the entire continent at the time. And then when I came back, like I beat him on the first try, and then I blew through Godric on the first try, and then I spent another 40 hours or whatever. I haven't even gone to the next legacy dungeon. I don't even know what the next legacy dungeon is. Like I've played through, I've fought a ton of bosses. I've done just like so much stuff. It's ridiculous in this game. And this is why I'm totally smitten with it too, is just like I've done so much stuff and I've gotten so many amazing experiences out of it. And like I still have the other 4, like I'm 20% through, I guess, in terms of like counting the overall main goal of what you're doing.
But I think that's part of the fun, is just exploring the world and even having moments like, having taken out the second boss. Now I'm just in that area of like, I don't even know where I'm supposed to be going yet. And that is the fun part of this game, is just pushing into new territory, seeing how far can I get here? Does it feel like I'm supposed to be here? I think this is okay. This is doable, but hang on, should I actually be over here? Just poking around the edges as you slowly expand the conquerable world based on your skill level. It's just so fun.
Yeah, it's insane. Like I've uncovered so much of the map, and then like the past couple of days I've been playing, I went to the Weeping Peninsula, which I guess should have been like my next stop, because I'm over leveled for it now. But it's like there's so much just in Limgrave that I haven't explored yet that I'm going back to now. It's really like once you get that big, like the big, country or region, like just going to every little spot, on the map, which aren't marked, but it's just like, I can tell there's probably something there, or I should just run along this beach and find what I find. And it's always some surprise.
Yeah. Sarah, are you digging it?
Yeah, I booted it up and I played for 4 hours, and I was like, I could feel it. I was like, oh no. I'm like, what if this is my game of the year? Like I had that moment. I was like, oh God, because the design is there. Like, the world is so well populated. Like, you never really feel like you've hit a sparse area. You can go anywhere and find something. There's no rails. Like, if it's too hard, or if you don't want to go past that scary thing, go around, go do something else. Like, it's just, wow. Like, what a joy to play. Even when I'm, I feel like a god at some points. And then like 5 seconds later, immediately humbled multiple times by a boss or an enemy. And it's like, it's just good design that I feel like I haven't run into in a while.
Yeah. And I think there's something too, because you're streaming a lot, or all of your experience with it, Sarah?
Yeah, I've streamed most of it. Like probably all of it. I
think this is where my recommendation, I think, gets a little bit hairy, but streaming this game has really been amazing. Like the community is so supportive. And I don't think it's just the MinnMax community, even though they're all great. But I think it's largely just like the From Software community. You can see it a lot in the messages that don't say try finger butthole and try jumping. But like, there's just a sense of everybody being so eager to get other people engaged with the game. And I think that really comes through when you're streaming it, especially like having the MinnMax community be like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Oh, make sure to optimize this part. Look over there. And it's not like in a jerky way. Everyone's just so encouraging. There's so many little tidbits. And so that has been really critical to my enjoyment of this game. And so I know that streaming it from an audience or for an audience is not exactly for everybody, but just having some community, some Discord, some friend that's a From Software game, I think will elevate your experience with this game in a huge way.
Yeah, when I was streaming, I had just beat a pretty big boss with my axe, and I got another axe, and I was like, oh, I love axes. Like, I'm an all strength build. My endurance is higher than my health. Like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And someone was like, oh, did you know that you can wield 2 axes? Like 2 great axes? And I was like, I can what? And I literally never looked back. I've been 2 great axes running around this entire time.
That's awesome. I got the, I am going with the Vagabond, and I have the basic halberd. And then, like, you know, the first thing that you can encounter is that tree sentinel, the big horse guy, right? If you kill him, you get the golden halberd. And so eventually I then was able to equip that weapon. It is ridiculous. I love that thing so much. And I feel like I'm breaking the game with how good that is at times. And I have it like the gold halberd +5. Like, I get into these combos, and this was, you know, I'm level 70 now, but this was even like level 50 or 45 or so. I could still just get into these combos where it's like, okay, I do 400, 700, 1100, 1100, 1100. Like, it's just ridiculous damage, and it's so fun to have that at a range. And so it's kind of like, it feels like Monster Hunter, right, Sarah? Where it's like, you find your weapon, it's like, I don't want to see anything else. I am just all in on this weapon. This has to be the best, even though I'm sure smarter From Software fans would recommend actually exploring a little bit because there's fun stuff everywhere. Kyle, what's going on with you? You've played the most and you're the quietest.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just crossed the 109 hour mark last night.
Jesus Christ.
I have the full map now.
Okay.
Which I only just got. And I am hitting a point now where I can't go off and really level up anymore. And I am hitting some walls with some bosses.
What level are you?
105, I think. And
I'm over here in like the 40s, and I'm like, oh, I'm so strong.
And I mean, the thing about it is, like, you can call in people to help you, and I've been leaning on that a lot. Like, I'm still a weirdo in that, like, I don't really love bosses. Like, I get so frustrated with them, and like, I'm hitting a point now where even on some of the bosses that I have like 2 that I'm working on right now. Like, I'm kind of going back and forth. And even when I call in people to help, we're still both dying.
Really? and they're mainline, you're sure? Like, you have to do it?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, I don't like hearing that. I'm scared now.
But I mean, I don't want to scare you away, because like, maybe just keep calling in people, right? Like, I mean, you have like, I had this experience last night with a very late game boss. No spoilers, but like, I called in this guy, and usually you just sprint to the fog gate, but this guy was like jumping in a corner, and I was like, what's going on? And he like did this clearly not supposed to do it, like jumped on this gravestone and then jumped around the corner. And I was like, where's he going? He must be trying to show me a secret. So I was trying to do the same jump he was and failing miserably. I was doing it for like 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden I got a trophy. It was like, the boss has been defeated. It took him like 2 seconds. He went around the back and like stabbed this like really late game boss for me. Didn't swing a sword once. And I was like, the fact that that's like an option, like for me, who's getting frustrated with a lot of these bosses, is just like stellar. But then I also have hit other bosses where I'm calling in people and they die like immediately. And I'm like, oh God, I appreciate the help, but you've been totally useless. Thank you for nothing.
Go back to your own universe, you coward.
But yeah, no, totally. I mean, I can't imagine anything really unseating it for Game of the Year, even though I'm like, you know, I'm very excited for Forspoken and stuff like that. It's just been a total joy. But I certainly still have my annoyances with From stuff. There is revealing the final section of the map is very unwieldy, and if you can do it without looking it up online, which I did, I'll totally happily admit that I did, I would be surprised.
Interesting. Okay, I don't even want to know what area of the map that is. Yeah, there's things that obviously are frustrating and still confusing, and every once in a while I think like, what would this game be like if we cared about the NPCs or the larger story in any way? Like, I understand, like, there's an interesting quote from Miyazaki recently where he said, oh, you know, the player's gameplay is the story of this game. It's like, yes, great. That is the way games should be, by and large. I love that. But still, at the same time, every time an NPC talks, I realize I'm not going to get anything out of this. I feel like I might as well not even talk to these weirdos.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you really. I did, the closest I got, there was like, I found a character, Galry, who told me about a woman who was like poisoned, and I went and saved her. And that was like the closest thing I got to like a narrative, where I was like, okay, 2 characters I can identify, and I gave her an item that saved her. But like beyond that, I could not begin to tell you what's happening in that game. And I think we said this in the last discussion we had about it, but it's a testament to that game that I don't care. Like I think there's a lot of there under the surface that I can really delve into, and I don't, and I'm still having a great experience.
I care more than I cared in Dark Souls to kind of figure out what's going on. Like I played Dark Souls 3 and I was like, I don't know anything about that game. But I feel like if you ask me about Elden Ring, like I talked to a character and they were like giving me the drama about the bosses. They were like, oh yeah, like they used to be married and then he left her. And I was like, he left her? And they're like, yeah. And then he went and he became someone else's husband. And I'm like, the king's consort? I was like, oh my God, tell me more. Like, we didn't get that in Dark Souls 3, right? But like, some of the NPCs really just spill the tea and you're like, delicious. And then you go and you kill her. And you're like, sorry, your husband left. Anyways.
Also, you're weird and the moon is weird.
Stop pulling knives out of your swords out of yourself. What are you doing?
And the beating of the dead horse when it comes to fingers in this game. Can we talk? I get that it's Elden Ring, but they really went like Elden Ring, rings, fingers, everything is fingers, finger monsters, finger items, finger spells, finger friends.
Then you come across NPCs. It's just old women being like, hey, "Have you seen more fingers? More fingers for me." It's like,
finger gods like. Praise the fingers, and you're like, okay, like I get it. I know that it was a ring game, but there's so many fingers in it.
And then there's hand enemies with even more fingers. You cannot. Oh my God, I love those little stinkers. I still am trying to wrap my mind around that idea of a game where everybody says, yeah, the story, it's confusing or irrelevant, but it's just amazing that it's not a ding. Like you're saying, Kyle, like it's just like the story is so subtle that it's not like embarrassing anyway, which normally you say a video game story is bad or incomprehensible. That means, okay, it's very obnoxious and it's in your face and it's bringing the game down. In this case, it's almost elevating it in a way just because it makes things more mysterious and subdued.
I mean, I think the secret, which is not like new to Elden Ring, like all their games are like this, is like, if you want the story, if you want to see what's happening there, you can go find it. You probably have to use the internet and it's there. But it's not going to impede your progress if you're not interested at all.
Right.
And I think it also is the world building that they do. And it's just, you don't understand a lot about the story, but you understand the places that you're going really well. You get a real sense of like what's going on there. And beyond that, like in terms of a hero's journey of, well, I go to a lot of places, see a lot of weird things, and fight a bunch of big monsters. Like that's all people really need. Yeah.
Which, I think the most magical part of this game, is really that everybody can kind of cater it to how they want to play. And for me, like I really just love treating it like it's a new Shadow of the Colossus game. Like we know that Miyazaki's a big fan of Ueda and his past work. We have an interview coming up on Friday at MinnMax where they touch on that, by the way. So stay tuned for that. But just like the amount of like shattered bridges in this game, and it's like just beautiful environments, running with your horse over a hill and you see some giant big thing, and then just knowing like, okay, it's just a series of boss fights in a big interesting open world, and the boss fights are gigantic and sometimes incomprehensible what you're looking at. It is perfect. It is what I want from a sequel to Shadow of the Colossus. Like every time you see one of those giant turtles with the bells, like, are you kidding me? It's just awesome. I love it. It's an incredible game. If you're not playing it, you should at least give it a try. Just give it a whirl. Sarah, you indicated that the performance maybe isn't great on PC, or how's it running for you?
I've had a few frame rate issues, but they're not like game breaking. Like sometimes my game will just lag, and then when I play online, I've gotten like kicked off the server twice. Just like kicked to the menu. So I actually, because of that, I haven't been playing online as much because it just keeps randomly kicking me out. And like,
that's a bummer.
It's such a different experience playing offline because, things are a little bit, there's no messages littering the ground.
Right.
Like there's no fake wall messages. There's no like blood stains. So then after like playing, I want to say like 20 hours offline, going online for the first time was so jarring. I'm like, what is all this stuff littering the ground?
It's obnoxious.
And then there's bloodstains everywhere, and you're like, why are people dying here? Like, I was freaking out. I was like, oh, like, so there must be a big boss here. There's a lot of bloodstains. And then somebody said in my chat, they were like, remember, Sarah, you're better than the bloodstains. And I was like, that's such a good advice, because I didn't die there.
Interesting,
so
yeah.
It's just such a different experience not playing online.
Yeah, it is so weird. Like, having this be the first From Software game that I've really gotten into, just, I wasn't expecting it to almost have like a baked-in walkthrough because of all the messages and stuff. Like, it is wild just to be exploring caverns. It's like, on your right, look up, ambush
item
on the
here.
left. Yeah, item here. Yeah, although that can be a little bit... A lot of these people are a little bit cheeky with their messages with this item thing. I've been duped a couple times, but
Yeah.
Are you guys leaving messages?
I'm not. No.
I thought you were getting a health bonus if someone gives you a thumbs up on your message. I don't think you do, but is it health? I don't know, but it's like
that if someone appraised it positively, your health would, like, you'd gain a little bit of health. So if you were
Really?
like, I saw a tweet where someone was like, I was in a boss fight and somebody liked my message and it kept me from dying.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
but I don't know
because
if
of
that's
that,
true or not.
I've started leaving messages everywhere, even if it's the same message. Someone's like item on right, I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna add that too. Because on a different server, maybe someone will see that.
Boring. Come on, be creative. Talk about a finger. Talk about buttholes. Come on.
Praise it if it's not useful, which is like, I think really cool. Like that wasn't a thing in the previous games where you got bonuses for people appraising your messages. As far as I know, I don't think they were, but it is that, like, it's that thing where it's like rewarding positivity. It's a Strand game, is what I'm saying, and it's like,
No!
Oh, I get it now.
It is.
Don't say that!
I get it
But
now.
I like that, and it means that, like, I do see fewer like lies because there's a
Yeah, the farther you get, the
encouragement.
messages do increase in quality
Yeah,
significantly.
Interesting.
but I will always hit the wall when someone says there's no wall there 100% of the time, just to be safe.
Yeah. Jake Zielsdorf submitted a question over on Patreon. He says, hey, is Elden Ring revealing that the magic of Breath of the Wild's open world was never about the physics or the climbing or any other aspect, but the sheer amount of surprising bespoke content? Yes. I believe in some ways that's an interesting, correct take.
I get.
End
Wait,
of
so
story.
repeat what they said. That it's not about the physics.
The magic of Breath of the Wild's open world was never about the physics or the climbing or any other aspect, but the sheer amount of surprising bespoke content. Is that ultimately what we want from an open world? Is just that experience of running around and saying, what's over there? What's over there? Oh my God. And then having it almost always pay off with something surprising.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I want. And like, not like in some games, the surprise is like a quest to another quest to another quest. And I like that from software. It's just like, here's the item. You looked around the corner, you went into the cave, you killed some stuff. Here it is. You don't have to go on like a wild goose chase for it.
Right.
So I think that's also what I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's odd. Obviously, the Breath of the Wild comparisons, everybody's going to run around with those in 1,000 different ways. But I do think that's what it is. Like, I mean, a lot of debate has been had this week about UI and open worlds. And like, could you just, if you played Horizon with all the UI off, would it feel a little bit more like this? But I think there's something more going on here in terms of just rewarding curiosity. And it just is bizarre how much more engaged you are with this world and eager to explore it and feeling like a character in this world than any other open world game that's come out this year. Last several years, but this year in particular just feels like there's so many open world games already. And this one just feels night and day different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the surprises, and I think we mentioned it the last time we talked about it, but the fact that everything's dangerous in this game and anything can kill you makes at least me pay so much more attention to everything. Like, I use that telescope all the time when I'm going into places where it's like, what is that over there? I can't tell. Like, I'm going to zoom in and like try and figure out what that is. And I think that just kind of builds into it. It's not, like the touristy, I'm just running around and having lots of fun as I go to these different places and being surprised because, there's a chest over there or whatever. It's like everything's really dangerous and everything is its own trial. And you come out of everything with this sense of achievement. And the fact that they give you so much of that is still just blowing my mind every time I play.
Now this telescope y'all mentioned, I have not used that once. Am I blowing it? Did I miss an item?
No, I used it once, and immediately after I put it away, I fell off a cliff and died.
Because
and I never took it out again.
Smart, really smart.
It's a bit of a clunky mechanism for sure, but I have it as one of my like quick save. Yeah, it's in my pouch of like, you know, quick
I call that my hot pocket.
Cute.
You know, that's where all your summons go. Your hot pocket.
Yeah. Smart. What do you use it for though? I don't understand. You're just like looking into a cave, or you're just looking on the horizon to figure out.
Yeah, whenever it's like an enemy or something that I can't tell what it is because it's, you know, like so far away. I like using the bow a lot, so it's like, okay, what is that thing? I don't want to just start shooting because you never know if you're gonna shoot an NPC or something.
Yeah. It's so crazy. I mean, 45 hours into this game, I just got a pop up on the screen saying, hey, here's how to use a bow. Like I hadn't equipped a bow or anything.
That happened to me too.
Well, yeah. It's so bizarre how like now it's like
I
seems
think
like
it
trying
must
to
have been
nudge
where
me.
you were on the map. I think it was map location based. Where were you?
I mean, I was
you in Limgrave?
I was super far north. Yeah, I was not in Limgrave.
I mean, it's random. I mean, the Stormvale Castle in front. I mean, there's people with bows there. Not bows. What are they called?
Crossbows.
Crossbows, which is what I use primarily. And it's like sometimes one of those guys will drop it. It's just kind of random.
You guys are using bows?
No, kind of.
Nah, I just go in there double axes.
Hell yeah.
Well, no, the crossbow is nice, at least, well, or maybe the bow for Jeff. But if there's a group that hasn't noticed you yet, you can use it to kite people out and take them on one by one. Just get their attention.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, usually I haven't used the bow too much in From Software's games, but I have the long bow, and it is ridiculous how far out you can like target people. And then the secondary ability is Mighty Shot, which uses a little bit of FP and it does way more damage. And bows or arrows are like 20 runes a piece when you go to you know, like a merchant, and it's unlimited.
Absolute
so it's like,
steal.
I just buy
what a deal.
600 of the, you know, it's like $2,000 for 100 or whatever, and so that's better than trying to use projectile magic, you know, which drains your FP more. So.
Right. E&T Clark watching us live, which, by the way, you can watch us live every Wednesday at the Backstage Pass tier if you're interested, if you're so inclined. It's the ultimate early access. It's like milliseconds away from really sitting here with us. Anyways, the point is, was that a good spiel, Jeffem?
No.
Okay, great. E&T Clark has a question for Backstage Pass. He says, hey, everybody, what is the most number of runes you've lost so far?
Ooh.
In a run? I think I like... Oof. I almost, there's something funny. Like I just have to prepare my mind for that. If I lose a crap ton of runes, I just have to laugh at it. It's always this feeling of just like, oh, you stinker of a game. Like I haven't thrown a controller yet. Probably like 18,000, somewhere around there for what I've lost so far.
I mean, that, like Jeff was saying earlier, like you have to learn that death is part of the gameplay loop.
Right.
Something Dan Tack taught me, like Dark Souls 2 was the first one that I finished. And he kind of really helped guide me through that.
Beautiful.
Was like, runes aren't that big a deal because like you can lose a ton, but there's going to be like way more around the corner. And once you sort of embrace that, like I feel like it's a lot less stressful.
Yeah, especially because I've gotten in the situation too of every time I'm getting up there in runes, I got like my sweet little farming spot, which I don't think this is a big surprise for anybody, but it's always like the War Master's shack. You go there, and then there's that cliff with the 5 trolls, and I just go and just run through, collect 5,000 runes immediately. So I'm always like, if I'm getting up there in runes, I'll just go there, level up, offload all that stuff. And so like that was great at the beginning of the game, and at this point still, if I'm like, I need an easy 5,000 just to level up, I'll just run over there real quick. And it's such a relief that, like, how often in an RPG can you still farm things from the beginning of the game and it's still like incredibly useful? It's crazy.
Well, I mean, not anymore for me. I mean, I'm at the point now I've lost like 40 or 50 at a time. And like, that's not halfway to a new level.
We're not all as cool
really
as you, Kyle. Come on. I don't know. Jeff, are you screaming at the TV when you lose some runes?
No, I think probably 20,000 is about the most I've lost, but I have found a better farming spot than you. So
oh, really?
Yeah, it's weird. It's part of a quest for the the first guy you meet outside the cave who like mocks you for being maidenless and then tells you to go die in obscurity somewhere.
Right.
But it was definitely worth it. And so now I just don't worry about runes anymore. Because I know like if I need them, they're there. You can get like 100,000 runes in like 10 minutes or something. So it's just not a big deal.
Right. Jesus Christ. All right. Well, that's
which feels good after playing for, and sweating for like 50 hours through this game to be to a point where it's like, okay, that's one thing I can worry a little less about. And it's there when I need to upgrade something or, like I spent one night just running around and because I also unlocked like early, like the smithing runes for upgrading weapons. So I can I upgraded just a ton of different weapons to like +6 or something like that, which isn't huge, but it let me just try a bunch of different weapons with my build because I'm mostly dexterity based, and it's like I've never tried a katana. Let me see how this works. Like slaughtering these sleeping Mac and me folks, and it's
Mac and me's.
It's remarkable how different and how viable so many weapons are. Like I was just going through my inventory and was like, like deciding which weapons to just put in storage so that they're out of my inventory or whatever. I still had like 10 different swords at the end of it of like, well, this one's pretty sweet. Like the built-in ability for it is really cool, and maybe I'll use it sometime. I don't know. I don't want to get rid of it. So should we just stop podcasting for this year because it's game of the year and there's no point in even talking about games after Elden Ring? It's ridiculous, man. And one of the other podcast questions that you previewed for us was asking what would Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, let me read it.
2.
James Pies writes in. He says, "What new mechanics or innovations need to be in Breath of the Wild 2 for it to supersede Elden Ring's Game of the Year spot? Assuming it came out this year. The return of the Loftwing, a double jumping Epona, playable Zelda. This, of course, is assuming it even releases this year, but I still have hope." You got an answer for James's question here?
Well, I think it was what we were talking about earlier, which is one. I think it would have to be way bigger than anyone was expecting it to be.
Yeah,
and I think it would just have to have a comparable amount of just those surprising moments. Like it would just have to be a huge world filled with a ton of surprises that people weren't expecting.
Which I think Breath of the Wild succeeded. I think I enjoy the Breath of the Wild more. The world more than I enjoy Elden Ring's world. This is just the closest I've had to that Breath of the Wild experience, but also just, the ease of use, the accessibility of Breath of the Wild, I think puts it above and beyond for me. But then again, this one, it's like, well, it's nice with the RPG mechanics. But I think the things that James might not be factoring in here are just like, I think what could push Breath of the Wild 2 above Elden Ring is some of the magic of Breath of the Wild is not really here in that big of a way, which is just mixing and matching different abilities, just getting really creative. The idea that imagine an Elden Ring, but you can rewind everything that you see and mixing and matching just like a crazy physics playground. Like I think that's going to be the star of the show for Breath of the Wild 2 is people constantly sharing clips of like, look what you can do, just like they did for the first one, but magnified by 5 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Zelda's always going to have a little bit of, not even a little bit, it's going to have a huge edge for me because the reward for exploration, presumably in Breath of the Wild 2 as well as the first one, is the reward for exploration are puzzles. Yeah. It's like finding those little mini dungeons. And the reward for exploration in Elden Ring are bosses, which is like, they're just two different things. And I just personally just would rather do a puzzle than fight a boss. And like, so that's kind of where I land on that question, But yeah, like Zelda had like I can't remember there's the Lionel, right? The big 4-legged creature, like, and then there's the huge bokoblin. Basically, Elden Ring took those two like encounters and like multiplied it by like 100, right? Because I feel like that's like you encountered those two and you're like, whoa, these are incredible, and then you would kind of see those two enemies again, and then the sort of the luster was gone after a while. Where like this, like, I mean, there are a lot of bosses that repeat. Like heads up, there are some that are really frustrating later in the game for sure. But like, I'm still seeing like totally new boss designs like all the time just around the corner, and it's like, whoa, what is this thing, like constantly.
Yeah, and I think still the openness of Zelda's world puts it above it in my mind, where it's like, yes, the open world of Elden Ring is awesome. There's still some areas where it's like, it's open, but there's parts where it's kind of a wide corridor and kind of more of a region that you can technically get out of, but just like having the completely open field of Hyrule still feels completely different and much more liberating compared to like, it's open, but there's a cave over here that you can get through, and then technically you can go down this corridor if you want. And that is at times what it feels like in Elden Ring's open world.
Yeah, I mean, Elden Ring is definitely still like I think it plays to From Software's strength has always been designing very specific like paths that they want you to go to and then putting experiences along those paths. And so even though a lot more of this is open, there are definitely like choke points in some areas, and like that one mission I was talking about, like it like they really wanted you to go specific ways, and I was underleveled and unprepared for what they wanted, for you to be ready for in order to get through that. But that has always been a plus for me with I wouldn't want a completely open world design from Software. I like that it mixes those two things.
Yeah, it is a beautiful mix.
I sometimes I would like to climb something to just get to. That's like, I gotta get over there. But like one thing that From is good at, which Jeff touched on a little bit, is like putting you on a path that you're like, surely that's not the way I'm supposed to go.
Right.
This tiny little tree branch right here, and then you go, and it's like, oh, I found a whole freaking city just by like walking on this branch that I didn't think I was supposed to even be walking.
Yeah,
totally.
or like I have jumped up onto this wall and I jumped down onto a roof, and it turns out there's like a third of this dungeon is this path that I'm now going through that I thought I had just kind of lucked in, or like wasn't even sure I could go down there, but it's its own entire branch. Yeah, I've always enjoyed that stuff.
Yeah, Elden Ring. We'll be talking about it through the rest of the time. Hopefully you aren't annoyed. And if you are annoyed,
do you think all you guys will beat it? Because like I'm committed. Like I don't see a world where I don't finish it.
It might take me a little
even though
while,
I'm like I'm hitting some brick walls really hard. That's
scary. That's not what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, I can't imagine a world where I don't beat this. It might take a couple months, but I'm enjoying it so much that there's no universe where I wouldn't beat it. I say that now. I mean,
I like when I played like 60 hours or whatever, I finally got through Stormvale, and I was feeling pretty good about where like how I had done, and I had explored a ton of the map up until that point. Like before I went there, I had gone to Caelid and all these different weird places, I finally got past that, got through the castle, like went up on a cliff. I overlooked at how much more there was that the map wasn't telling me that there was. Yeah. And I felt a certain sense of dread of like, oh my God, I'm going to be playing this game until the end of time.
It's intimidating.
But I don't want to bounce off of it. I am as committed as I can be at this point. I feel sorry for every other game that's going to come out this year that I'm just going to be like, I just want to play more Elden Ring.
Honestly, it's the worst impulse, but I've thought this a couple times while playing this is, why isn't every game like this? Why isn't every game just as good as Elden Ring? What's wrong with everybody else? Just make games like this, everybody. It's a terrible instinct. Hey, Sarah, if people like this show, did you know that there's a way to support the show directly?
I did know that.
Well, that's right. You can head on over to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, everybody. We'd appreciate the support. We are inching towards our new Patreon goal of recording a full Let's Play of Chibi Robo in the MinnMax studio with Jeff Cork and Sarah Podzorski. So please let that happen. We're really getting there. And if you support us at any tier, you can also compete in Trivia Hour, which is coming up on Monday, March 14th. We'll talk more about that later. But thank you to some of MinnMax's biggest supporters. You know who they are, but if you don't, they're these people. They are, of course, Voices in My Head, a new tabletop game. Have you heard of this, Jeff?
I have.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. It's from Unexpected Games. We talked about one of their games a while ago called The Initiative, which I love a lot. But Voices in My Head, Kyle, it's inspired by Pixar's Inside Out. And so you play as courage, cowardice, honesty, and selfishness. And then one person is the prosecutor. And you're all in a courtroom trying to control the character's head, whose name is Guy Johnson. But it's a wacky courtroom. There's like storylines of different cases and twists and turns along the way. It's a fun time. We played it not too long ago. And the cool thing is that like there's a cool physical aspect where it's controlling this guy's head and the different parts of his head, like, okay, this is speech, this is this other region of his head, and you have to like actually physically slide the pieces, and you can bump other people's pieces off of that region of the brain. So it's like a cool physical aspect of this game. But Voices in My Head, if you're looking for a new tabletop game to play, I believe it's 2 to 6 players, but I could be wrong on that. Also, thank you to our friends at Fixture Gaming. They want everybody to know about the Fixture S1. It is a clip that you put on your Nintendo Switch Pro controller, and then you slide the Nintendo Switch screen on top of that so you can play with the greatest Nintendo Switch controller on the go. There is a link below so you can check it out on Amazon. It is $35 on Amazon, but there's also a carrying case bundle if you're interested in that, such a thing. Also, there's a Fixture S2 in the works, so it'll be compatible with the OLED, so you can check that out, everybody. Thank you to Fixture Gaming for supporting MinnMax in a big bad way. Also, thank you to our friends at I Am 8-Bit. They want everybody to know about Genesis Noir, the new vinyl soundtrack to Genesis Noir that you can get from I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. If you don't remember Genesis Noir, it's a game we talked about a couple times last year. It's one of my favorite indie games from last year, where it is just a trippy, incredibly beautiful take on the history of the entire universe told through a film noir perspective, but the soundtrack is awesome. So you can give that a whirl, and you can check it out in I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, where you can use the promo code March Madness. March Madness, all one word, for 10% off everything under $100 in their online store. And I Am 8-Bit is so generous that they're giving away a prize from their store each and every week to the MinnMax community. Whoever submits the best question over on Patreon each and every week wins a prize. And this week, whoever submits the best question is going to win Disco Elysium on PS5, the I Am 8-Bit edition. So a physical version of Disco Elysium. I Am 8-Bit is shipping that out to people, so you can help support them by going to that store and using March Madness as a code, because they are unbelievably generous for the MinnMax community. All right, let's dive in. And before we do that, Sarah, you've been working on that magic spell, right?
Yes.
And isn't it like that magic spell that turns Kyle Hilliard's into Janet Garcia's?
Yes, I've been working very hard on it.
Okay, great. Do you want to just let her rip?
Yeah.
Janet Garcia, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
Wow, welcome. Sarah Pazorski, you got to use that more often. Get that Kyle out of here. Hey, Janet, help us go through all these emails. Community questions. Community comments. Community comments submitted over on Patreon, and then help us choose the number one favorite, okay?
Sure.
Great. Jared R. Meyer writes in and says, hey, I just saw the Batman in 4DX, moving seats, smoke, strobe lights, smells, Batman coming out of the screen and beating the snot out of me, they say. And it just reminded me that I will absolutely love any sort of stupid, gimmicky thing that media companies can throw at me. What have been some gimmicky features or peripherals in games that you actually came to love or enjoy?
I do like the sound out of the controller.
No.
I know a lot of people don't.
No,
but I do.
Janet.
Yeah. I just don't like it when it's maybe, I'm not a big fan of it used as like the radio, just because, I don't know. Or like when you don't know it. Like I had headphones on once at work, and then my controller was just like, I was like, I wish I could make this not happen. But when you like turn a key and like you hear it in the controller, I like that.
No,
I
Janet,
like when the
I'm
Death
sorry.
Stranding
You're
baby
wrong.
cried out of my controller, and then I had to rock my controller so it would stop crying.
God, games are pretty cool. I am only in favor of it as being the radio. Like, I needed to have a contextual reason why it sounds like crap. But like the idea of it coming from a radio,
Close to you. That's why.
so a baby would sound like crap if it's close to you. Jeffem, can you confirm?
I don't know. I'm
Checks
not.
out.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right.
Okay.
Interesting.
See, there you go.
See, I always have headphones on, so I also don't notice that my controller's making noise until like it's too late. So I don't know. I guess I'm not the person for the experience.
Yeah, this is a broad one, Jared. The gimmicky features and peripherals, because I immediately thought of, it's probably sacrilegious to call it a gimmicky peripheral, but racing wheels are something that I didn't pay attention to for a majority of my life. And then at Game Informer at some point, we got like some fancy $300 racing wheel in, and I brought it home and set it up in front of my PC and played Project Cars. Genuinely one of like my favorite gaming experiences. Like, it was absolutely incredible. I had such a good time with that. And then also set it up to play European Truck Simulator. And now it's like, it's every once in a while I think I should I should buy a really expensive racing
Yep.
wheel.
So you're going to have the pedals, the chair,
Honestly,
the wheel. You're going to have the works.
It's better than VR in some instances. Like, it really feels incredible. If you're just like running these cars, manual transmission, it really feels cool if you got a good beefy thing.
See, we need to go back to like actual gimmicks. When I was younger, there was a PC game called Barbie Genie. And when you bought the game, it came with a plastic genie bottle that you would plug into your PC tower. And in order to like summon Barbie Genie in the game, you had to like flick the top off of the bottle. And then she would come out of the bottle like into the game. But here's the thing. It only worked like 30% of the time. And then the rest of the time you could just click a button on screen to summon her. But like I want to go back to like cheap pieces of plastic that do one thing.
Yeah.
And one thing only.
Right, like a Poke Walker, for instance.
Exactly. That was so fun.
It was cool.
Everyone in my high school had one, and they were like shaking them at all hours so that people were wearing them on their socks. Like, it was the hippest thing.
Speaking of hip, I went to this Museum of Failure, it was called, a couple months ago at the Mall of America. It was the coolest place to be. And they had... I'm sorry, Sarah, you might need to cover yours for this.
Oh, no.
But they had an old Barbie doll, and it was like Barbie's little sister, and it's like from the 70s.
Which one?
But the
Skipper?
whole...
Kelly? Stacy?
I don't know.
Which one? The one that they don't talk about anymore?
Yeah, probably that one. But the premise was that this doll was going through puberty, and you could like raise and lower its hand, and its breast would like inflate for like Barbie's little sister. And it was like, pulled off shelves after 6 months because people are creepers out there. But just, good Barbie facts from the history of Barbie. Anybody else have a favorite peripheral?
I am looking I know it's going to be an awful experience, and I do not care. I've put on my Christmas list for, I think, a year now. I'm leaving it. I might buy it myself for myself, but I want to drop the $100 to get, God, what is that drum game? Taiko, whatever.
Oh, yeah, the Taiko drum. Yeah, I know that one.
With the little
rhythm
drum.
game.
And like, is the game good? No, probably not. Is the drum good? Also, probably not. But do I want the two together? 1000%. I don't want to play that game without the little drum.
Yeah.
What's the Donkey Kong bongo game?
Donkey Konga.
I love the Donkey Kong Konga. Like, I love that. I played that until my hands like bled.
Did you play Jungle Beats?
Yeah, it was like the rhythm game one where you would play along to the song.
Well, see, this is the thing. I
didn't play the game version of it.
There is a distinction here. So there's Donkey Konga, which I believe came after Jungle Beats. I forget the chronology, but Jungle Beats is a platformer that is made by like the Mario Galaxy team, and it uses those exact same Congo drums, and it kind of gets lost in the shuffle of time because everybody just remembers Donkey Konga because it's the greatest name for a video game outside of Exoprimal. Jeff, have you ever loved anything?
Yeah.
Cool.
I just wanted to bring up the fact back when forced feedback was a gimmick, when it was the Rumble Pack for Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
It was its own separate peripheral that you had to buy and put 2 AA batteries in, and it was totally worth it.
It was really great.
Did it just like rumble the controller?
Yeah, I mean, it's for what they use it for, nowadays. I think GoldenEye was the big one that we used, and it would like rattle the entire controller, but it was also kind of loose, so it would actually make a rattling noise that it wasn't supposed to make, but
it was very immersive.
What are you going to do?
Hugo H2P writes in, he says, "Hey everybody, I think it's been well established that 10 out of 10 games, that a 10 out of 10 game doesn't mean a game is perfect. But for each of you, what does it generally mean? Is a 10 out of 10 because it managed to achieve what it set out to do, or because it surpassed expectations and brought something new? This is why I'm very thankful I've never had to write a review in my life, because if you put a gun to my head, I don't know if I could really... I don't think
Have you actually not?
I've never written a review, no. Never,
I'm
ever.
surprised about
You
that.
should write like your own little Elden Ring review and then put it on the internet and then like write something really controversial in it. Like I don't use torrent. I think torrent is cheating.
Right.
And then we could get so popular.
But really be like snooty about it. Like,
yeah.
what
The
kind
fake
of,
outrage.
Right.
Yes.
Like you use torrent. Okay. I guess we're just crapping down Miyazaki's throat and against his sense of game design here, everybody. Yeah, I don't know. Jeff,
real experience is walking.
slowly at that. But Jeff, I mean, you've written 4,000 reviews. In your mind, you never gave a 10.
I never gave a 10.
What's your highest review? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I'm guessing probably 9.5.
I bet you never got to 9.5. If I ever find a Jeff North a 9 back on Game Informer, I'd be shocked.
Well, my younger days probably.
Really?
I want to say maybe I did like a second opinion on the first Borderlands, and it might have been that high.
Ooh, okay, interesting. So in your mind, what is a 10 out of 10? Is there any way to measure what that is for you personally?
I think it's personal. I think it's just a game that you are completely in love with and enamored with. It doesn't matter if it has flaws. It doesn't, but it's one where you just enjoy playing it so much, but also just admire the hell out of the design of it to the point where it's like, I wouldn't change anything about this. I think like for me, the one that I've always felt is the perfect game would be Tetris and it doesn't really matter which version unless it's a sucky version of Tetris. It's hard to screw up Tetris, but I think Ubisoft has done it multiple times.
EA has done it. Everyone's at their turn.
But otherwise, like Tetris Connect, God, I don't know if I'd give it a 10, but it's Tetris in that echelon of
this Tetris thing is falling apart, Jeff.
I know. I should have thought about that.
Tetris is actually bad, as we're going to end this conversation.
But I wonder how many people gave Tetris a 10 out of 10. Even back for like the Game Boy review and stuff is probably like,
Probably not, but like after playing it for
Tetris
30 years of my life and enjoying it for that long, it's like,
Yeah.
It's a perfect formula.
Speaking of perfect formula, Ray Lawaza here with the history lesson. Thank you. Ray Lawaza points out in the Backstage Pass chat that Jeffem gave Dreams a 9.5, which I forgot about.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Wow. I.
Correct. The only game better than Tetris
Didn't remember that.
is Dreams. And Sarah, you've seen enough of Dreams to back up that opinion.
Yes, I back it up completely.
I don't know, Janet, do you have thoughts on the legendary 10 out of 10?
Yeah, I mean, I think part coming from IGN and then part like IGN 10 out of 10 being really iconic. I do think the Masterpiece label is a good one for 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
I think
that's
a game is a 10 out of 10 when it feels kind of transcendent in a way. I don't think it necessarily needs to do anything new specifically to be transcendent. I think it just, all the pieces work together in a way that isn't just that like moves you, I guess, on a deep level. It's a lot like love. If you have to ask, the answer is no. If there's any doubt that it's a 10 out of 10 for you, then it's not a 10 out of 10. But if you say that and you have no questioning of yourself, then I would say that is your personal 10 out of 10. But I would add that it could still have flaws or even things you wish were different. But yeah, it's like you just feel it. It's a gut reaction. I do think it's different, though, than a 5 out of 5. There's a lot of debate on, like, we gave, or kind of funny, we gave Horizon a 5 out of 5.
Right.
People were like, oh, so you think it's a masterpiece? I think the 5 out of 5 scale generally, and every outlet does it differently, is so small that you don't get into the granularity of the higher end scale. Like, to me, a 9 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 would be a 5 out of 5 on the 5 scale. Like, the 5 doesn't get into the nuance because there's not enough space, but that's getting into a lot of layers. But that's kind of a light distinguishing point. And that's why, in general, I think outlets that give out of 5 tend to give like a decent amount of 5 out of 5s versus like outlets that do a 10 out of 10 are a little bit pickier, because the beauty of the 10-point scale or the 100-point scale is you get really granular with like, it's good, but how good? Is it like really good or really, really good? Well, out of 5, like, you don't have that much space to work with because there's only 5 numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
I forget who it was. There's somebody once who was talking about everybody getting too in the zone on game reviews and how easy it is for all of us to kind of crawl up our own butts talking about this type of stuff and really just focusing on and zooming in on. And then somebody, it's a very Jeff Cork line, but I don't think it was Jeff Cork. But they said, at the end of the day, we're writing book reports about toys. Like, everyone needs to relax. I think that's a nice perspective every once in a while. So, 10 out of 10, it's just that you really liked that toy, everybody. That's really what we're talking about here. Ryan McGinnis writes in and says, howdy Ben and the Weasels. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's a reference. Ryan asks, is cologne dead? I'm 35 years old, and I remember in school everyone wore it. If you didn't know what to get someone for Christmas or birthdays, it was a solid choice. Nowadays, I don't know anyone who wears cologne, and I think body wash and deodorant is keeping the country pretty much stink-free. I have not considered cologne since high school.
Which is probably why it's ruined. All of the high school boys ruined cologne for everybody.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it
when the era of Axe body spray was a really dark period in time in high school?
Different than a cologne.
But I think people confuse the two because there's like obviously pricey cologne that will smell good, but I think a lot of people got into it very fast, and then everyone kind of came out against it quickly, and then it died out completely.
Well, hang on. Is Axe body spray not technically considered a cologne?
A cologne's more like a perfume.
It depends on who you're asking.
Yeah.
How
like now we're
classy
getting
they
into
are?
the like what is like God, what is it called? Connotation versus denotation. I think it might be from a denotative lens, it could be a cologne, but connotatively, it's not a cologne.
Jesus, Janet, putting on the glasses today. Very impressive.
Man, I gotta try to squeeze all the juice out of this degree that I paid for. Why do I have a degree in teaching in English when I'm here? It doesn't make any sense.
It's a great
Anyway,
question.
still have to pay for it though. But
So society in general burned out because I can't even remember the last time I smelled cologne, like on an airplane.
my
or nothing.
dad wears cologne still, but he's
Ooh.
old.
So it's
he's
for
like
old men.
60. But I think my boyfriend might have some cologne. But I don't think people are hitting the cologne on the daily. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Jeff,
Is perfume still a huge thing? I feel like we're post perfume too.
Are we?
I feel like the whole idea of just buying a specific fragrance that you're going to put on yourself and force everyone else to smell just feels invasive at this point. Like,
have you ever
just make sure that you don't stink.
right?
You know, like get a scentless deodorant and wear that, and then just be a normal person. You don't have to walk into a room and make everyone's eyes water.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, make their eyes water by how cute you look compared to how raunchy you smell. Do you also have a thing, Jeff? You seem like this type of guy. Where every once in a while, I'll buy like a big pack of soap, like a 12-pack of soap or something, and then I'll get home and open up one of them and put it in the shower, and I'm like, it just like smells horrific. Like, it's tough to find scentless soap. Does anybody else struggle with this? And sometimes it's like, it's called original, so you think that's going to not have a scent, then you open it up.
Wait,
and
so
like,
you're aiming for scentless. But
What is this problem?
why have you not already found it and then just kept it the same
because
one?
I'm not smart enough to remember.
And then why are you buying 12 packs of soap that you don't
I
even
like
know that you
bulk.
like the scent of?
I like
Why are
bulk
you
things.
dice
I don't
rolling
want
on a
to.
12-pack?
I don't want to.
I gotta use this Costco membership because I paid
Yeah,
for it, and I
exactly.
gotta get a whole lot of it.
You don't smell the box though, Hanson?
It's tough to smell through a box. I don't think it comes through like a Dove
And now you're
original.
smelling through the box and the mask, so it's like a double. It's like,
guess that's true.
do I want to problematically deep sniff this candle right now
Right.
and maybe kill everybody?
That
Like
is
I don't
true.
know. I don't know. I'm rolling the dice.
Does your soap smell, Jeffem? If it's too sensitive and personal question, I understand. You don't have to answer it.
No, it's not. I'm thinking, do I have a bar of soap? And the answer is no. I just use shampoo. Whatever
your whole
the
body?
shampoo is, I'm using. Yes.
Hang on, Sarah can't take it. Sarah can't take it.
I get the lather up here, and then
I need to leave. I need to leave immediately.
What's wrong with
so
that?
bad.
Clean is clean. What's wrong with that?
Don't, Jeffem, I love what you bring to the show. Don't share that with anybody ever again. Delete the VOD and the stream.
What's wrong with? Is it gross or is it just?
What's wrong with using shampoo as body soap?
Yeah, that seems. I don't do it, but I have done it. Like in a hotel or something. If there's not like soap, it's like sure, it's all the same.
it's body. It's the same thing as body wash. It's a gel that comes out. You lather it up, you put it on your body, you
What's wrong
wash
with
it
mint
off.
gum is toothpaste. It's mint. It makes your teeth
It's
smell
gum.
good.
It goes in your mouth.
Night
now,
and day.
come on.
If anybody can tell me a downside
bro.
to using shampoo as soap,
I
would
know
like
what
to
I'm
hear
getting
it.
all of you for
It
Christmas.
is like literally not
Cologne?
for. How about Ben? Send
You're getting
Jeffem
soap.
one of those 12 packs of soap you got, and let's just even this whole thing out.
Okay.
No, they're not. They're. I don't even know where they're not the same. they're different functionally, chemically. You know, soap is generally like made. They're made for different things. Mm-hmm. It's like how is olive oil different than the oil I put in my car? It's all oil. It's like yeah, but they're different oils.
Night and day. You wouldn't be able to drive if you put olive oil in your
Clark in the
goddamn
chat.
car.
3-in-1 soap. I also don't agree with that, but I'm not gonna
Wait, what's the 3?
have his visceral reaction because at least that is it
Conditioner.
was designed for it to be
Well,
bad
Do you know what
at 3
that
things
is?
at once.
Hang on.
Shampoo, body wash, and conditioner.
Okay,
Yes.
so
That's the 3-in-1.
so that's the 3-in-1. Okay,
Yes,
the
the
body
3-in-1.
wash part is confusing. Yeah, I get the no dandruff 2-in-1 thing, and that's
Yeah, the head and
good to go.
shoulders.
Yeah, the Head and Shoulders. Yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
It's great. People bring up a great point in the Backstage Pass. And again, Jeff, this is too personal, but they bring up maybe Jeff is just a really hairy guy. Would he not be allowed to use soap if just his entire body was just beard level hair? You need to use shampoo for that, right?
No, because that's fur.
I mean,
Like, my
I also
cat has
use
fur.
the conditioner as well afterwards.
Jeff Markiafaver. Anyways, hey, Luca Resigno writes in and asks, is there any game series that wouldn't make a great tactical RPG spin-off? It's a great question. Because a lot of people are saying, like, any game, if you make the tactics RPG spin-off, it's going to be great. You make, like, a Mass Effect spin-off.
Funny enough, I thought of Tetris for this. I feel like that would be a bad.
Probably
bad
pretty
one.
bad.
I want to see it, though. I want to see some designer try and come up with that.
I would also want to see it. It feels like it could be similar to, what's that game that Leo was really hot on, where you're dropping in as the letters?
Oh,
I'm like, someone remember this. 'Cause I
Babel
sound
Royale.
insane.
Babel Royale.
Yes. It could be like a funky thing, but that gut reaction, I don't think Tetris tactical turn-based would be good.
But, okay. Jeff, right now, man, can you pitch us what a tactics RPG version of Tetris would look like? There's something there. Those ingredients seem cool. I just can't figure out in my mind what it is.
No, I don't know. That it would probably end up being terrible no matter what you did.
But if there's a game jam happening out there and you're looking for a theme, I'd really appreciate if somebody tried to take a stab at that one. Stephen Woodson wrote in, he says, he replied to that comment over on Patreon. He said, I would unironically love a Mario Kart tactical RPG.
Mario Kart,
which is another good thinker. And I was thinking, like, well, that's impossible. But Jeff, there's like turn-based racing tabletop games like Downforce and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But would the goal just to be to blow up other cars, though?
Well, to win the race.
What are we counting as tactical? Are we just saying turn-based is tactical?
Turn-based strategy. I don't know. Do you have a different definition of tactical?
You're attacking each other, or is it still just a race?
It's a race. I don't understand what's confusing about a tactics RPG Mario Kart game.
At all.
Yeah, you're right. Did you see that the news that Nintendo was like, hey, Advance Wars 1+2 reboot? Not so much.
Maybe
we don't really
later.
want to release it now. There's not even a new date on that. But if you missed it, yeah, they postponed it because of the war in Ukraine, where they said, you know what? Tanks rolling in, even if they're really colorful tanks, no one really wants to see that right now. Which the fun, weird factoid is that the original Advance Wars launched 2 days before 9/11. So it's just like bizarre that series has always coincided with terrible things in the world. I don't know. Anybody else got thoughts about what wouldn't make a great tactical RPG? Gears. I'm just kidding. They did it. They pulled it off. Sonic. But then again,
They
would
go
do
slow
it.
and
They
think
would
it
do
through.
it.
What if it was tactical RPG, but you have to go as fast as humanly possible?
I do like that idea. It's kind of like a chess clock. You have to, bam, you have to slap it real quick.
Yeah.
I guess they made Dark Brotherhood. But anyways, Tanner Hoisington writes in. He says, Sarah.
What?
Tanner says, Sarah.
Oh no.
How is 13 Sentinels?
What a story. What a trip. What an adventure. A bunch of Japanese high schoolers. What a story that I have yet to see the fruits of my labors. And why these teens are naked in mechs. Don't have an answer for that yet. That's still on the table. Lots of questions. Not a lot of answers in that game yet.
Was it last year or 2020? I think maybe 2020 that it came out, but it's definitely one of those
2020.
that people are like, hey.
It's coming out on Switch this month? Sometime really soon.
Oh, interesting. So everybody's saying like, hey, if you like stories and games, don't overlook 13 Sentinels. And it's got to be a tough one to stream. I can't believe you're doing that.
Why? Because it's a story? Or
Yeah.
Because it's long?
I think both.
The story is so twisty and turny and very, like, something's always happening. Like, you're always going at like 90 miles an hour in that game. So it's actually quite entertaining.
Okay. All right. Hey, all right. GRN writes in and says, "Greetings, MinnMax crew. Yesterday while working, I encountered a product I couldn't believe was real. It was a wallet that had lining made from the used jersey of a professional athlete." That's really weird. That's like, every once in a while, big sports people, they like to pretend that they're not nerds. That is one of the dorkiest things I've ever heard in my life, that an adult would buy that and not consider themselves a dork. Get out of town. You're in dork territory, baby.
How much was it? And what jersey was it? How do I know 100? Is there a stain on it? An identifiable stain? How do I know?
You can smell the cologne.
Maybe there's authentication site, depending on what the site's credentials are, how there's grading for games and stuff. If you, not on that level, because that seems kind of weirdly fan made or small business made, but a lot of times it'll be this. You can buy this thing from this game and event, and they'll have it all labeled and authenticated and things. So, yeah. That
one. Jordan Holmdahl writes in and says, "Hey, all, if you could retire a common phrase from video game discussions, what would it be and why?"
Love letter.
Love letter. That's solid.
I've used it before. I get it. We all know why we use it. It's an easy way to kind of speak to. It just it's overused.
Yep. Jordan says, "I'd be happy to never be told, if you can see it, you can go there." Can we just blame Todd Howard for that? I feel like not many people are saying that now, are they?
Yeah, not anymore. That became a sarcastic meme pretty quickly.
Right. Quad A, above AAA quality, Microsoft.
That only happened once too, though, right?
No, it happened, of course, with the Dead Space developers. Help me out. What are they called again? Visceral. Yes, they were big on that, because we once interviewed the head of that studio, Sarah and Janet, and he's like, "Hey, when we're talking about Visceral games, we just want to drive for Quad A. We got a saying around here, and it's Quad A all day."
Oh my God.
What are we doing? Can I shut off this camera yet? Shut up.
You just push it over onto the ground. Oops.
Oops, I'm snapping the P2 cards in half. No, but then I think even the initiative, Microsoft's Perfect Dark Studio, I think they pitched that, calling it a Quad A studio.
I don't want to hear next gen anymore. It's not. I don't want to hear next gen. It's not. If it's coming out now, it's now gen.
Oh, okay.
I agree. I don't want to hear this is next gen, and I'm it's on the PS4 still.
Right.
It's not. How is that possible? The word has been so overused. It's just a filler now.
Yeah. Metaverse is the obvious one, but that's gamers aren't saying that, right? That's just some nonsense.
No.
This is a very specific one, but within the halls of PlayStation, they call Insomniac Insom. And I truly hate it.
Oh, yeah.
I truly hate it. And maybe it was just Sid Schumann in that one stream. There's no way to know for sure, but the fact that he confidently got on a stream and called Insomniac Insom is an insult to everything Insomniac's ever done throughout their entire storied career. All right, Harrison Holt McHale writes in. He says, "Tonight I reached the final boss of Elden Ring and New Game Plus, all to get some dang platinum trophy. I've still got one playthrough to go, but it's still a blast playing through the game along with everyone else on the MinnMax Discord, sharing ideas, opinions, fun anecdotes." See, there we go. There's that group stuff. Collaboratively experiencing a video game together with others is one of my favorite things. Does anyone on the panel have a favorite example of a game they've shared and experienced with others? It's a broad one.
And this is separately together. We're not talking
I don't know.
MMOs or
I guess so.
competitive games. This is we were both playing the same game at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know. Jeff,
Separately.
were you have something hot for this one?
No. Not now that I understand what the question is. No.
What were you going to say?
I guess it would be Elden Ring at this point.
Honestly, yeah. Are you jumping in the MinnMax Discord at all?
I haven't. I haven't looked at their Elden Ring channel.
It's very helpful, and they're very good on putting spoiler tags up on everything. Joseph Betts writes in and says, "Hello, MinnMaxers. Longtime listener, first-time writer for a MinnMax show proper, at least. Thank you, Joseph, for being here. Thanks for submitting a question. Melee guns or magic? If you could only use one of these attack types in games from now on and could never use the other two, what would you pick? Keep up the amazing content. Looking forward to the Chrono Cross Deepest Dive, hopefully." Not announced, Joseph. Not announced. Melee, guns, or magic? What do y'all think?
Probably magic, but I don't like the addition. When I first saw this question, it was just melee, guns, or magic. But like without, I can never use the other one.
Yeah.
It depends. Does that come with the caveat of like, if there's a game that requires you to shoot a gun to beat it, I cannot play that game? Because if so, I'll just go guns.
Well, you can play it, but you just can't shoot the gun.
And then I'm gonna have to go
magic.
gun.
Like, what kind of magic is it? Like, mana based, scroll based, like.
I feel like you just gotta go melee.
Talented.
Yeah,
Melee.
Yeah, because it's the
go
worst
guns.
one. But
I'm gonna go guns.
If you but if you choose guns, then like you can't play another Mario game, you can't play another Zelda game.
I thought this was just
I don't consider that
what's
as
your
melee
preferred
attack.
play style?
You think Mario's melee people in the streets?
You don't think jumping on a head is melee? That's as melee as it gets.
Correct. No, it's when he punches, because he does have a melee attack. In 64, he can punch things.
Yeah, that's true.
Punch and the jump is different. They're not both melee attacks.
So what's the
never
difference?
gonna play video games ever.
So isn't like jumping on somebody's head? Isn't that just like punching them with your feet?
It could be interpreted that way. But now you're talking about like hot dog is a sandwich type logic,
right,
and I feel like that's a slippery slope.
You're right. Okay, that's tough. Jeff, will you just settle it once and for all? You want to pick one?
I guess, man, I don't want to do guns. I guess magic. Magic can be melee. Magic can be projectile.
Magic
can be whatever you want.
All right, look, if you're not going to adhere to the
rules
of the question,
have you not played Elden Ring? I got a giant magic sword. I got a magic arrow that I can shoot with a magic bow.
You have a magic sword?
Covers everything.
Magic sword? What does that look like? What do you mean?
You like basically, swing your wand, except a giant phantom sword comes out of it.
Oh, really? I've seen like bosses use that against me. Interesting. Ryan Besedny writes in and says, "Congratulations on making Twitch partner, Sarah."
Yay, thank you.
Woo!
You did it. You did it. What does it feel like to be at this next level of human evolution?
Honestly, I really expected it to feel different. I really expected to be like, yes, I have been validated. And then now I'm like, oh, it's just the same. It's just the same, but now I have a little check mark.
Mm-hmm. That seems good.
And more bit rate, I guess.
And like
higher bit rate.
Archives last longer.
Yeah, more. You can watch VODs from a really long time ago.
Hell yeah. You don't make more on subs though, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Jose, well then, hey, congratulations though, Sarah.
Maybe more on ads? I don't know. I'll let you know.
Ooh, I think it is. I think it's more on ads.
I think more on ads.
Yep. Jose Arroyo writes in and says, "Hey y'all, happy International Women's Week. Here I dare to ask," weird way to phrase it, "who is a woman in the industry you admire and why?"
All of them.
Other than Sarah for making Twitch partner. I don't know. Janet, who jumps into your mind?
You're like so many names.
No, I do,
right, Janet?
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I do have some, but I don't want to hog it.
Sure. I mean, okay, I'll just go. A lot. I mean, I like Sarah's all of them. I think that's I feel very much the same. Obviously, there's you, Sarah, here. Awesome content, awesome streams. Kelsey, friend of the show at Video Game History Foundation. Alana Pierce at Santa Monica, and also doing like 8 million other things. There's people like Belinda, who writes for, I forget where exactly at this point, was involved in like Call of Duty campaign writing elements of things. I'm kind of butchering what studio she's actually affiliated with. There's
Sledgehammer, right?
Yeah, I think so. There's like Clara over at does the PR for Devolver Digital. Like there's Genevieve, Greg's wife, who is one of the heads of Pop Agenda. Like, and really, I think one of the biggest common threads I feel like of the women that I know in the industry is just there's so much, I don't know, passion and insight and kindness in the work that they do. And one thing that I think, to me, without getting too like spicy of a take, that I always respect of women in the industry is it's so hard to be a woman in the industry. It's such an unwelcoming and isolating space that I feel like anyone who's doing big things in the industry as a woman, like, oh, you went through some like serious stuff to get here, and like you're still here. And like that's why I always think it's so ridiculous when there are, you know, people more often than not men who question like, oh, whether women like truly should be here or know what they're talking about. I'm like, do you know how hard, how good you have to be to like rise above and be noticed and stand out and get to do that stuff? Like, if anything, like the women are more times like out of 10, like more qualified than the men that they work with, because they had to do a lot of stuff just to kind of be there and be present. And there's, just so many barriers and issues. But and it helps, for me as a woman in the industry, it's nice to meet other women who are doing what I do and to find that sort of little bit of reprise in that. Yeah,
there's I think there's probably people watching or listening that just have that perspective of like, I don't know, I listen to women on podcasts. It seems fine. How bad could it really be? As someone who's read every YouTube comment that Game Informer received and that MinnMax has received, you would be shocked how much people attack women on YouTube. Maybe is this the most boring take ever, Jeff? To be like, hey, the internet's really mean sometimes, but I am still stunned. Especially for like some of the wider stuff back at Game Informer of like, oh, if there's a woman on something, they are just a lightning rod for horse comments.
Yeah, and that doesn't even, touch on the kind of things that women go through in workplaces as well, and just the harassment and the treatment there as well. My answer was going to be Brenda Romero, who's been in the industry for a long time, and I think unfortunately has probably been overshadowed by her husband for most of it.
Right.
But has been designer on many different games, including Empire of Sin, which just came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we talked to her in that developer roundtable we did back in 2020. And she's been good for getting out there and has vented frustration about like she's been invited to a women developers roundtable discussion throughout her entire career, and she's vented about just how frustrating it is. Like, can I just be considered a developer instead of like, hey, look at this woman developer. Here we go again and again and again. There's a podcast that I found recently that's called She Plays Games.
Yeah.
You were on it, Janet. I saw you in there.
I was on it.
It is really, really good. It's just it's an interview with women across the game industry. But what's awesome about it, and forgive me for forgetting the name of the host, but what's awesome about it is it's, even if, you're like, okay, women in the industry, that's great. But also, what's really cool is it's a bunch of just smaller roles in the industry that you don't really hear interviews about too often. It's like, hey, what's it like to be the community manager for this B-tier studio? Just like that level of discussion, I feel like big interview shows don't really focus on. And unfortunately, because of the state of the industry, where it's like, women are starting to work their way up more and more, like you're not getting somebody at like a Todd Howard level on this podcast, but it works to its advantage because it's just fascinating to hear like people on the ground exactly what they're going through. And so I recommend that She Plays Games podcast. But
Lauren Kay is the host.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, she's great.
But I did have to look it up, so I also kind of forgot her name.
That's fine. You mentioned it, but one of the first names that came to mind is Alana Pierce. Play, Watch, Listen is, I think, my favorite video game podcast at this point. She's just a machine over there. And the fact that she's also a writer at Sony Santa Monica, I don't know how that's possible in any way, but she's knocking it out of the park. Mary Kish certainly has her stuff together. Respect her a whole lot. I think one of the most impressive people on the development side that I've met is Angie Smets, who's a producer for Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West over there in Amsterdam. But like visiting that studio, it just gave you that appreciation of how amazing it is that they are able to release so many games, that Guerrilla is just on top of everything. The fact that they can get a new IP like Horizon Zero Dawn out the door, it's like, hey, a lot of that you have to tip the cap to the producer, and Angie is the one wrangling it over there. So that was one of the most important people I've met in the industry. Let's see. Fork has a very natural follow-up question saying, hey, which is more numerous on planet Earth, white t-shirts or black t-shirts?
This is just a wheels or doors situation again.
White t-shirts, I think.
I think white t-shirts. Yeah. Now, Sarah, you make it seem like everybody in the world has talked about wheels and doors. What is this hypothetical? I haven't heard this.
Oh, this is a new trend that has taken the internet by storm, or at least TikTok by storm as of yesterday. Somebody asked the question, are there more wheels in the world or doors?
I think it's wheels.
What do you think there's more of? And then it's like, well, does this count as a door? Is this like our cabinet's doors? Like, what do we count as wheels? So it's just it's like the black versus white dress situation all over again.
Right. Okay. All right. So you're saying you're above it?
No, I was all in on wheels.
Oh, okay, cool. Good. Hunter Sachs submits a comment. They say, apparently Hidetaka Miyazaki in an interview not long ago mentioned that It Takes Two was one of his favorite games last year. This was an interview on the PlayStation blog that Tim Turry, friend of the show, actually did. If you didn't see it, it was fascinating. It was just Miyazaki talking about how much he loved playing It Takes Two. And then Tim had the great insight to ask a follow-up question. So he went into more depth about how much he loves It Takes Two. So it feels validating as somebody who loves It Takes Two to be like, see, Miyazaki, the greatest living game designer, he likes it. Anyways, Hunter says, throughout your time meeting developers, are there any other games played by other teams that stood out? It's interesting.
Yeah, all those developers that I've met.
You've met who?
All of them.
You've met developers. You met like
my coworkers.
No, there's that picture of you with Mr. Nearman.
Oh,
Yoko
yeah, but I
Taro.
wasn't like, hey, what other games do you play besides Nier? I wasn't like, oh, by the way.
Yeah. The one that stands out to me is visiting Hello Games for the No Man's Sky cover story back at Game Informer. That entire studio was obsessed with Shoot Mania, which was like Ubisoft's FPS spin-off of Trackmania. And it was the weirdest thing of them being like, oh, you don't play Shoot Mania? Like, no one else on planet Earth is talking about Shoot Mania, but somehow that entire office was like
single-handedly carrying the servers of Shoot Mania.
Yeah, they were like staying late and got really into Shoot Mania. It's just weird. Joey writes in and says, hey, everybody, I'd love to hear you all talk about feature creep in games. I've been thinking about revisiting some older gen games, but I don't want to deal with fuel management in XCOM 2, nor build an army in Shadow of War, nor the million different ways of asking, are your survivors happy in State of Decay 2? Bigger isn't always better, you know? What are some feature creepy games that got on your bad side? Why do you think it's so tough for developers to determine when less is more? I think that's a great question.
I'm just thinking about all of the, after Elden Ring came out, all of like the game directors who like walked into their offices and they were like, stop building The Sims. Have you played Elden Ring? And you're like, no.
But honestly, I feel like Elden Ring is the industry's second chance to learn from Breath of the Wild. I felt like there was going to be a lot more games that were inspired by the openness of Breath of the Wild that didn't really happen. And now with Elden Ring again, it's like, hey, everybody, there's an audience for more openness and more exploration here.
By feature creep, is it like there's too many features, like too granular features?
Just packing it full.
I mean, this is not a popular take, surprise, but I think Red Dead 2 is too granular in its simminess to the point where I found it, frankly, kind of boring. And I really like a lot of elements of Red Dead 2, but just the process of closing a drawer in that game is hell. It's hell on earth. I don't want to do it. The fact that, and I know there's like now it's on PC, so there's mods that can get around that and stuff, but yeah, I think that was too realistic to the point of like, well, now this is just like, can you imagine the realism of life? But if you had to do inputs in order, active inputs in order to do all those things, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
Hey, Janet, on this podcast, we're trying to be Red Dead Redemption 2 positive because we're trying to get Jeffem to play it. So if you could say some nice things about Red Dead. No, come on, talk it up. Talk it up, Janet. He has to play it. I don't know. I think
you sneeze and people just start shooting you. It's just crazy. Like so much.
It's a great game. It's a great game. We agree, Janet. And Jeffem needs to play it. I think like feature creep is natural, especially when it comes to like sequels. Because you think about, we spend maybe a couple weeks with a game and then we move on. But think about like developers spending years with these games and how many notes they have written down of things that could possibly be in that game when they're just doing nothing but being fully zoomed in and focusing on this thing. So then when it comes time to make a sequel, of course, they're going to be like, wow, I don't know. I have a Google Doc page that's 60 pages long. Let's throw it all in, please. And then Assassin's Creed happens.
Like, you don't want to lose sight of that core gameplay loop. And I feel like a lot of games do that now. Like, they're very, very guilty of like forgetting what makes their game fun, which I think is why Elden Ring is so successful, is like the core loop is down to a science. They make this one kind of game. They're going to keep making it and they do it the best. But like other game developers, you know, you get too many cooks in the kitchen. Someone really likes this kind of game. Someone really likes that kind of game. It gets pulled in a bunch of different directions. Yeah. And then by the end, you don't have a cohesive loop anymore.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that I think if you don't put new stuff into a sequel, people are just going to say it's the exact same thing as the last game. I think games get criticized for that all the time. So I think there's probably a fear of like, we got to be bigger and we got to do more stuff and we got to add new elements. With the XCOM example.
Yeah.
That's what that made me think of.
We need to put snowboarding in this RPG.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who was this person? Jonathan12 submitted a comment over on Patreon. They say, if I'm able, I'd like to take this opportunity to point out that Itch.io is currently, they have a bundle with a minimum price of $10 where all proceeds go to supporting Ukraine charities. I think this might be my answer for last week's question about what you love about video games. Oh, that's nice, Jonathan. Thank you. Yeah, we can have a link in the description for that. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, what do y'all like for question of the week? I hate to say it. I like cologne. I think.
I knew you were thinking to say that.
Look.
I was like, it generated the most conversation, which is normally how we end up picking these.
The way we used to do it, and I think it's a good way to do it, is which question made the show better, the best. And I think it might be Ryan McGinnis with cologne. Am I wrong?
I'll go buy a barrel full of bar soap.
Just go get some of Ben's 12 bars of soap.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of soap. Like,
those
they're just sitting
stink.
there.
I don't want his nasty smelling
But if
ones.
you use
We don't
my
know what they
used
smell
ones-
like. He never actually said what they
you
smell. He
guys,
said they
like-
smelled like something, and he wants it to smell like nothing.
Gross,
Look at
gross,
Lush,
clean.
and you look at like stores like Lush or like, Bath and Body Works, and you're just like, that's not for me.
Oh.
That's for
for
someone
the
else.
bourgeoisie or
I
something.
wanna-
Yeah, it's for the bourgeoisie. It's for the 1%ers.
Yeah, I want to cut my nose off whenever I
Have you
walk
ever
through
been in
one
a
of those stores.
Lush?
No.
Ever?
I did not even know that was the name of a store. I can't handle the cologne or like the perfume
Sarah,
smell.
let's just start our own podcast. Like, I
Yeah,
can't
let's start
deal
our own
with this anymore.
podcast. It's going to be the podcast of people who smell good.
The clean cast.
We already had that bonus podcast a while ago that I feel like 70% of it was just about the different smells of things.
Oh, yeah. There was that show of just smelling things.
That's right. There was
With
that
Leo
show.
and Sarah, right?
Yeah.
We used to do
But
that.
I was an unwilling participant on that journey.
All right. Well, hey, now it's time for something we call Get a Load of This. All right. Here we go. Hot stuff. Jeffem, hot stuff coming through. Take it away, dude.
Well, get a load of this. Mine was the Itch.io bundle for,
was it really?
for Ukraine.
Oh, well,
Yep.
there we go. There's the link below for that.
It is
then.
up to, wait, hold on. It is up to $3,095,000 that's
Wow.
been raised so far.
That's
I
wild.
think a short hike is also in that. And if you haven't played a short hike, please play a short hike.
Yeah. Speaking of games that learned a lesson from Breath of the Wild. Yeah, for sure.
There are 992 items in it.
Jesus.
So far, so.
That's awesome. Hey, get a load of this. Jeff, I take it you know the YouTube channel called Dice Tower, the Dice Tower, big tabletop channel. They just had this video go up, and it was one of those, this is very particular to my taste, and I
I know
apologize.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but they had a video go up, and I'm like, that can't really be what it is. But they have a episode that just went live, and it's called Trey Parker's Top 10 Games of All Time. And it's just an hour of Trey Parker from South Park talking about his favorite tabletop games and running down them. And it's just awesome to see him go in full geek mode. Did you watch it, Jeffem?
Yeah, I did. It's super weird. It's super weird seeing him so serious about a topic that you never would have guessed. And all the games that he said were legit. So
yeah, just to spoil his number one, it's called Summit, and it's like a co-op mountain climbing game. Have you played it, Jeffem? Because I need to
haven't,
check it out.
no.
Okay, it seems very good. He's very into like story-based tabletop gaming experiences, which is of course natural. Anyways, the link's below if you want to check that out. I don't know. Sarah and Janet, who's like more eager to share their get a load of this?
Sarah is.
Take away, Sarah.
Get a load of this. Soap is a thing for your body that you should use, and it's anyways. Popular voice actress Christina V made a cover song of Despacito using Sprigatito, the Pokemon, which I will now be linking into the podcast.
Genius.
And Ben will need to play it for the people.
All right, you know what happens when you ask me to play something, Sarah. Where
If
did
you don't play it, I'm gonna play it with my phone on my mic.
Okay, where did you send this to me?
I can put it in the Discord, but I put it in the podcast Slack as well.
Oh, podcast Slack. Okay, got it. All right, here we go, everybody. Get ready for art. Here we go. All right. I can't. For the
I was not expecting that kind of voice, and then I was gonna ask, was that actually what Sprigatito sounds like? But we don't know, right? So it's just like this is one artist's interpretation of what this Pokemon will sound like. I hope it does not sound. I'm picking this one.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope it doesn't sound like that.
Well, the good news is, we know what Game Freak likes, and they're not going to make it sound like this. It's just going to sound like, it's going to like the digitized cry or whatever. So we don't got to worry about it. Hey, good times. TikTok is good after all. Janet, what do you got?
Get a load of this. Chris, I never know how to say his last name, Schoolian from VGC. I probably butchered his last name, but he does these series of video game encyclopedias, and he has his next one up for pre-order. It's called Jumping for Joy, and it's all about the history of video games, platformers. So, I just thought this really interesting. I think it's impressive when anyone does any book of any kind, let alone a series of like different encyclopedia entries. Like I can't imagine writing about so many games in such detail and kind of laying them out and doing the spread and all that work. And I pre-ordered this and I'm excited to check it out because that's my favorite genre, I think, in a lot of ways. So I want to see what the history is like and how many of these games I've played and which ones I should pick up that I haven't gotten to yet. So yeah.
Right on. Jeff, did you pull one from the community, from the Discord?
Yeah, get a load of this. This one is from Leafeon, and it's a tweet by someone named Jeff B. And he says, in the late 80s, someone pumped out an Alvin and the Chipmunks cassette tapes of 80s new wave and pop hits. 30 years later, some guy found it, slowed it down to 1/16th speed, and revealed what was secretly the most important post-punk goth album ever recorded. And they linked the YouTube video of it, and it sounds surprisingly cool.
Interesting.
Can we hear this as well?
It's very weird.
Can you send it to me, Jeff?
Hey, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Can it beat Sprigatito? Damn it, Chipmunks.
It's like 6 songs and it's about 15 minutes long.
All right, well, get comfortable, everybody.
Color me your color, baby. Color me your car.
Why would they slow it more than a normal voice?
Color me your
I don't know. That's art.
I'll be damned. There we go. Check it out in the link below, everybody. Hey, that's it. That's the episode. Thanks so much for watching or listening, everybody. We appreciate it. We got some things going on here in the future. We have an interview coming up on Friday with folks from the indie studio Camouflage. Ryan Payton, who founded the studio, and then also Matt Walker, who just left Capcom. It's those two talking about their journeys through the industry. Ryan Payton was an associate producer on Metal Gear Solid 4. So we talk about the development of Metal Gear Solid 4. We talk about the challenges of being an indie studio these days, how many different offers they've had to buy them at this point. It's a really interesting, wide-ranging conversation. And in that is what I was hinting at earlier, where Ryan Payton talks about what it's like to go out for drinks with Hidetaka Miyazaki from Software, and then Ueda from Shadow of the Colossus and Eco fame, and what it's like to see those two people talk, which is about as interesting as you can get in my mind. Then on Monday, March 14th, we have the new episode of Trivia Tower. If you support us at the $2 tier on Patreon, you can compete in video game trivia. And we're going to be joined by Blessing Adeoye Jr. from Kind of Funny. So he's going to be our big co-host for that episode. And for Trivia Tower, if you win, you get a trivia question correct, you work your way up the tower, you can win a code for Elden Ring, for Christ's sake. Also, Nobody Saves the World, otherwise known as the second best game of the year, and a bunch of other stuff. Republique, we have a ton of codes to give away. So if you're looking for a reason to jump in and help support MinnMax, if you've enjoyed our content, this is a great reason. $2, jump in, win a prize, compete in Trivia Tower, give yourself an exciting Monday evening. You've earned it. Yes, Jeffum?
Indeed.
There we go. Also, reminder that if you support us on Patreon, you can unlock Party Chat, which is our Patreon exclusive podcast that airs every week. This week, it was a gigantic conversation about Shrek, probably way too much talking about Shrek. Sarah seems to have started some sort of Shrek revolution.
Mad I missed it. Tell me next time you talk about Shrek.
Okay, you can jump in whenever. So you can unlock the podcast in your favorite podcast feed. Also, a reminder, speaking of podcast feed, Crossfade, our music podcast, which airs every other Friday. It's not Patreon exclusive. Crossfade is available wherever you get podcasts. And on this episode of our music podcast, we're talking about Arcade Fire and Built to Spill. So subscribe to Crossfade on your favorite podcast app. And here's another reminder. I'm sorry for screaming at you to do all these things, but you can follow us on Twitch. We'd greatly appreciate it if you follow MinnMax Show on Twitch, because this Thursday, if you're listening to this early, this Thursday is going to be the streaming debut of Jeff Marchiafava.
What?
Crazy times. Do you know what you're streaming yet, dude?
I do.
What is it?
I checked that game out, and it's a keeper, buddy.
What is it?
It's called BeamNG.Drive, which
Shut
is
up.
probably the best name for any video game.
This is a Square Enix game?
It could be with that name.
Uh-huh.
It's a racing game that's focused very much on soft body physics collision stuff.
So just wacky crashes is the name
It's
of
going
this
to be
thing.
real weird. Yeah.
All right, so get weird with Jeffem by following us on Twitch. We're streaming every Tuesday and Thursday, everybody. A couple times on Tuesday, so check that out. We'd appreciate it. Also, a reminder for everybody that if you support us on Patreon at the $50 tier, you can become a game champion. You can pick any game under the sun and officially declare yourself the champion of it. We will tweet out that you are undeniably the champion. This month, we have some great picks from folks. Zachary Pligge has declared himself the champion of Superman 64, a game that he's literally played dozens and dozens of times. So he's locked in, baby. Also, Jonathan is declaring himself the champion of Strange Horticulture, which I didn't know what it was, but it's a game that came out. Have you heard of it, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
God,
Didn't it come out this year, recently?
Yeah, yep, it came out in January. Wow, you're so hip. Yeah, I had no idea, but it's a detective mystery game about growing plants, but it's sitting at overwhelmingly positive on Steam. It's one of those that's like, oh, do I need to check this out? So congratulations, Jonathan. Thanks for supporting us. Jesse Spencer is officially the game champion of Yakuza Like a Dragon. Congratulations, Jesse. If you have any questions about Yakuza Like a Dragon, go to him. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us. We'll run through the rest of these, and they're in the description of every piece of MinnMax content as well, so we appreciate the support. All right, I think that's it for this episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. Anybody else have some wise words?
Sprigatito.
All right, there we go. Thanks so much, everybody. Be good. Have fun. Let's go.